So it finishes Manchester United 3, Southampton 1. Let's just take a look at what that means to the table for Southampton. They're done, aren't they? That's the end of them. They are currently sitting on 6 points. Meanwhile, for Manchester United, that victory lifts them above West Ham and Spurs up to 12th in the table. Julien Laurent joins us. We're from Jules in a moment, but Stevie, you're watching this game. How would you describe it overall?
There's absolutely no way Southampton deserved to not get at least a draw out of this game. They were by far the better side. United had a good 10-minute spell at the beginning, as you would expect. But after that, they got outplayed by a team who haven't won away from home all season. And at half-time, if you're United, you're scratching your head. The second half, generally, United put a little bit of pressure on, but never really opened them up. And then, of course, a couple of late goals, add on top of the third one, makes the scoreline look as though this was comfortable. It was anything but comfortable. And the only thing we learned about this game today was that every single thing we thought about United before those last 2 results against Liverpool and Arsenal, that's exactly who they are. Those 2 results are just fortunate, because today they were really, really fortunate to get 3 points.
Ahmed Jallow saved their bacon.
Is it that easy to say?
Yes.
Like without him, we're having a completely different
conversation. Pretty much.
Yep.
Pretty much. This is a Southampton side they've one win this season, 3 draws, I believe that's right. 6 points. 6 points. This was going to be, but for Ahmed Jallow, the lowest point of a low season and a low time in this club's history. This was going to be this is probably going to be the lowest. Primarily because Southampton have been so bad. So bad. I mean, they might not get... If they get to double figures in points, the way the mistakes they make, they're going to be lucky. And they, as Stevie said, outplayed United for long periods. Their manager said it in the interview after the game, for 75 minutes, Man United made them look like they were a sort of mid-table side. And then all these mistakes came back, and that's one of the reasons they're down. And if you watch Southampton, they make mistake after mistake. They try and play out from the back. They get caught, thinking back to the Chelsea game down in the South Coast. It's mistake after mistake, and that's what sends you down to the Championship. But, again, as somebody mentioned a game the other day, I can't remember who it was, if you swap the shirts on these teams, you wouldn't think that's Man United and that was Southampton. And I kind of think, and Ruben Amorim said yesterday, or the day before, was his press conference, he said, I'm going to learn more about my side today than I learned in the Arsenal-Liverpool games, and he was right. He was right. When their backs are to the wall, they can somewhat put up a fortress of a decent shape. When they're at home playing a much, much weaker side, and they are asked and sort of forced by the home crowd to try and come out and play, they are utterly horrendous. And Ahmed Jallow saved one of the most embarrassing results that they've had for many a year.
But it shouldn't have been like that, should it, Jules? They're riding this wave of optimism. Obviously, Arsenal, Liverpool going into this game, Southampton bottom of the table. If you were to set up the perfect picture for Manchester United to kick on, surely this should have been it.
I guess, although we've said all along, it's easier to put together a very good, strong, well-drilled defensive structure. You go 5-4-1 like they did against Liverpool and Arsenal, and then you wait, and then you counter when you can. And that's exactly what they did in those 2 games. And it can work, especially away from home, especially against teams that are better than you. But like I think Stevie said earlier, when you have the ball then, and Craig too, to be fair, you have the ball and you have to attack, and you really have no idea. And let's be honest, they scored 3 goals. The 3 goals that Ahmed scored are all down to him, and that 1-2 with Eriksen, I guess we can give them that. But apart from collectively, there was just nothing. There was really some patterns of play that we can recognize and we see what they're working on. There was really like a collective move where you could see the runnings and you could see the triangles, or you could see there was just none of that. I agree with the boys. I thought it was embarrassing for most of it. And really, I know those 2 results against Arsenal and Liverpool were good results for them. But really, they're 12th in the table, and they play like a team that are 12th in the table. That was the 10th goal they conceded on corners this season, the most in the Premier League. 10, I think 8 of those 10s have come since Amorim took over. He had his assistant Carlos Fernandez, who's supposed to be the set piece guy, standing up, like they all do now before a set piece is taken. And he looked clueless, and his players were clueless too. And it was an embarrassing goal to concede again. And I just think that Ruben Amorim is smart enough to know that this was bad, and that really there's really nothing to celebrate apart from the hat trick from Ahmad.
You've got to give him his due though, Ahmed Diallo. He's, hat trick apart, whenever he gets it,
Well, he's exciting. At least he does.
he picks it up towards the edge of the box, and his first thought, almost every time, is to drive at a defender, is to push the full-back back, is to push the back line back, and that commits people. That gets a back line sort of backtracking, and at least he's got that, and the finishing. So that is something to cling on to. But as for the rest, I mean, Southampton at home, and it was such a struggle. I mean, if you said to me yesterday, is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be fun to watch? I said, no, probably not, but it's probably going to be it should be pretty easy and pretty comfortable. But that was desperate. And I think that tells you exactly where they are, and, what's Ruben Amorim brought thus far that's not out with a defensive shape in big games? And the answer is, we know he plays a back three. We know he likes to play generally two guys behind the front man a little narrower. What are we seeing in terms of a change in the football from Ten Hag? And I know it's very early, but you can go in and make a difference.
But he doesn't have the play. He doesn't have the players to play the system.
So this is it. This is the conversation we're going to be having now for the rest of the time.
And the problem is, I'm saying that he doesn't have the players to play this system, because people like Amad Diallo, they can't get him the ball. Southampton were playing out from the back and playing through Man United. Man United couldn't play through to Southampton.
Right.
So whether you've got Amad Diallo or anybody else, getting them the ball is a problem. And in the middle of the park, I mean, Menu and Ugarte were just non-existent. And then defensively, Yoro got absolutely torn apart by Sulemana. I mean, so even all the changes that Amorim made, he was forced into them because there was absolutely nothing happening. But to go back to the point, whether he plays 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 or whatever he wants to play, they don't have the talent on the field. Regardless of the system, they do not have the talent in order to take the game to anybody.
But my argument would be they are mediocre at best.
Everywhere.
But they still have much, much better players than Southampton.
Right.
So why is it so difficult against a team that have been walloped by most of the Premier League?
They got beat 5 at home a couple of weeks ago.
Why is it so difficult for this side to? Can these players not handle the unrest coming from the stands at Old Trafford when somebody gives the ball away, or when Southampton score a goal and the crowd are moaning at you? Can they not handle that? Is that where it is? I mean, it has to be something, because we might not think Ugarte and whoever and Rasmus Højlund, we might not think they're the best players, Garnacho and whoever it is, but they're better than the opposition.
Yeah. So it comes down to City. We spoke about City the other day. And basically, certainly I think it comes down to the mentality. And it has to be the same, because as you've said, on paper, they've got better players than Southampton. But if you can't produce it, that's got to do with your mentality.
Yeah.
And that's the problem they have. Do they have talent? You could probably argue yes. But they don't have the mentality that when they step on the field, particularly at Old Trafford, they don't have the strength of character to take the game to the opposition.
And next up on Sunday, Jules, it's Brighton at Old Trafford.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's again, it's a similar game, not so much today, because as we said, Southampton is one of the worst teams that we've ever seen in the Premier League, but it's a similar game to the Forest game, where United got just torn apart everywhere. It's a similar game to the Bournemouth game, where again, they were just not good enough, and Amorim was struggling to keep them in the game, struggling to find solutions to what the opposition, who are better than them, really. And I guess Brighton are still a young team, and I think maybe this is something. Old Trafford is quite an intimidating ground, as we saw today when they're pushing, etc. But really, you could clearly see a scenario where Brighton go to Old Trafford and just play them out of the park again. Because where do you go now? You've taken off Menu, Ugarte, Højlund so early in this game, half-time, start of the second half. You put Anthony on. What kind of message you send to your own dressing room by bringing Anthony at half-time or after 50 minutes? And all he did was missing that sitter that Magnan would have scored. What kind of message? The guy has never played for you. He's not good enough.
Liverpool had not won a league match here since 2015. That changed today. They take an 11-point lead in the table. And Pep's Manchester City finished the weekend 20 points behind the leaders. Let's hear what Arne had to say after Liverpool's latest win.
What we do know is that no one saw us as a title contender when we started in the beginning of the season. And I think no one in the world of football would have expected City not to be so close to the one that leads the league, if they are not the one that lead the league. But we all know why. They had many injuries. They had a difficult period. But again, today you could see, although the result maybe doesn't show you that, but how good they are as a team and how difficult they are to play against.
Yeah, who would have known that the table would look like this at this stage at the beginning of the season? It's an 11-point lead now for Liverpool. It's a game more than Arsenal that they have played. As you can see, Manchester City 20 points behind them after 26 rounds. How times have changed. Frank LeBuff is joining us now to talk more about it, but I will start with you, Stevie. I won't say they've won it, but I will say it's Liverpool's title to lose now.
Yeah, it would be catastrophic if they threw this away now. Haven't got themselves in the position they had, and they've got themselves in a position because of Arne Slot. I mean, again today he made a decision not to play centre forward. I thought he would because Jota's fit. I understood previously switching Gakpo and Diaz in there because it was only Núñez. Jota haven't had his injury problems, but today he decided not to do that, and he had Jones and Szoboszlai kind of in between the midfield and the front line, and it absolutely worked a treat from a defensive point of view. Obviously Robertson and Alexander-Arnold were the target for Manchester City, but everybody got around them and made sure that they never got the opportunity really to hurt Liverpool. And then going forward, particularly Szoboszlai was running in behind, as we saw, for his goal, and just got everything right. I mean, the tactics was spot on up until the first goal. I can't honestly say I was saying, oh, the tactics are great, because Liverpool didn't see an awful lot of the ball until they went one up. And then after that, they were just, although they didn't have as much of the ball as City, it just felt as though they were really in control of what was happening on the field. And in the end, when the final whistle goes, it's one of them. Well, that was actually not as bad as we thought it was going to be.
I think I think measured. In control, even when they didn't have the ball. At times in the first half, they pressed when they wanted to, and at other times they didn't. And in the second half, they didn't press very much. They just kept a very good shape. And Van Dijk and Konate just marshalled the back four. And if you look at the possession, and I heard Guardiola saying after the game, I think it was to Jan actually for the Norwegian channel, obviously doing the interview in English because I'm sure he's Norwegian, Mr. Guardiola is not great. We played a really good game. I didn't see that. I didn't see it. They had lots of the ball because Liverpool, well, in my opinion, Liverpool let them have the ball. And then when they coughed it up, or Liverpool won it back, I thought when Liverpool broke, at times in that game, it was majestic to watch. Do you remember the one in the 35th minute? When Alisson rolls it out to Konate, it goes into full back, they're outside the penalty area, they play it around, it goes into the midfield, it's Szoboszlai this time who's dropped it off, he has a magnificent touch, all of a sudden they're running at this back four again, they've decimated the midfield of City for the umpteenth time, and it gets fed into Salah, all of a sudden Alexander-Arnold makes the overlap, and only a poor choice from him meant that it went out for a corner. It was, and the guy said it in commentary, what a goal that would have been. And I think that summed Liverpool up. Whenever they wanted to change gear and do that, they could. To me, and this for the last 3 or 4 years has been the big game in England. You know, Klopp and Guardiola, two unbelievable teams. To me, Liverpool toyed, a bit like Real Madrid did. Let's be honest, Real Madrid did it. Liverpool toyed with Man City today. They said, have your possession. We're in control of this game. And whenever Liverpool wanted to get it in, and Jones making runs, or Stevie said, Szoboszlai dropping deep, or Salah's threat in behind, whatever it was, they picked and chose whenever they wanted to go and attack this City team. It was very measured.
Very measured and majestic as well, says Craig. Frank, do you agree?
I do agree. Everything was perfect. Everything was spot on. I mean, I'm going to say something against Mr. Slot because he said nobody saw us in that position. Yes, I saw them. I was lucky, but I predicted them to win the Premier League. But I never thought they would be that perfect.
Yeah.
We were expecting to see them.
Stop!
Yeah, well, you know what?
What have you
When
been
I'm
told
right,
about
for once,
gloating?
I have to say it. No. I said, and before the beginning, that Liverpool will win because there was, I mean, the era of Manchester United has been proven over, and I love that the fact that the way I see football has finally won against the way that Guardiola sees football, and the era of possession to be annoyed and bored about watching a game, where in contrary with Mr. Klopp, but now with Mr. Slot, we see vertical football, fast reaction, efficiency, and not possession. It's what I like. And Arne Slot has been majestic everywhere. I mean, the tactic today, the personnel that he used today to win, the set pieces, the corner kick that when Salah scored, everything was potent. Everything was perfect, and he showed that the era of success from Guardiola is over, and now we are starting a new era where football has to be rethought.
It was interesting, the John Szoboszlai selection in terms of where they played. Yeah. He's clearly looked at this back four of City, and particularly, my back's gone, particularly those centre-backs, and whoever it was, I mean, we weren't expecting it to be Ake and Kusanov. Obviously, Diaz was, I believe, dropped. But he's thinking, whoever plays there, if those two guys, you know, Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones, they won't play up top, they'll drop off. One of those centre-halves will get sucked in. And when they get sucked in, Liverpool will pick them off in behind from a Salah run or whoever it was, Diaz making a diagonal run. And if they don't get sucked in, then they'll have extra bodies in midfield. So he played a blinder in that one. He knew what the weak spot was. The weak spot was the midfield and the centre-half positions or the back four. And he played two guys in there that was a real head-scratcher for the City midfield and the City backline. Because where do we go with these guys? Do we step in? Do we not? Which one is dropping off? And it really confused them, and it worked really, really well.
In a lot of ways, we should have seen this coming, though. Because if you look at City, the two biggest problems they have, clearly on the defensive side, when teams get at them quickly, they have no idea how to deal with it. Absolutely none. And the City we see today is a team that going forward has no change of gear. It's one paced. And they're so caught up with the possession that they end up letting, regardless of whether it's Liverpool or anybody else right now, they let them get back into positions to defend. And so when you've no change of pace, you're getting nowhere. The opposition can get bodies in front of you, and then when you cough the ball up, bang, you're getting at a back line that doesn't defend together and leaves holes all over the place. And it was two, it could have been and should have been more.
If you look at the stats, you pick up a newspaper, I don't know if you pick up newspapers now or you open social media, if you're a bit of a stat nerd and you go, oh, City played well, maybe Liverpool were a bit lucky. That is not, tell me, not the story of this game.
I mean, again, if you're the stats guy, City had more shots on target than Liverpool. And I don't remember Alisson making a save. That's how blunt they were and how good Liverpool were defensively.
Frank?
Yeah, I just want to have a word on Salah. I mean, remember like 3-4 years ago when he was fighting for top scorer against Sadio Mane or with or against Sadio Mane? They were both a little bit selfish. We saw some arguments and everything. Salah has been so clever. Reminds me of Ronaldo when he got aged a little bit and a little bit older and he changed his game, became more a striker, a scorer. Salah understood that alone, he wouldn't do everything. But he could do both of them, scoring and assisting players because of his cleverness and his attitude. And it's what he's doing this season. His action when he gave the ball to Szoboszlai 4 years ago, I could have bet with you that he would have tried to shoot. He changed his football. He became very clever, smarter, and we can see the efficiency of his acts, and that's simply amazing. And I have a word. Can I have some sympathy for Guardiola in a week to fight against Mbappe and Salah? that's not a hard. That's not a very good time for him.
Sorry, just to go back to Liverpool. I know people watching going, "Oh, you're going a bit over the top in Liverpool." They're the best team in Europe at the moment. They might not win the Champions League. I mean, Real Madrid might beat them, or PSG might somehow beat them. But from back to front, they're the most organised and dangerous team in Europe. They can do both sides of the game, can't they? There's no doubt about that. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to win everything.
Any which way you want to play against them, they can stand up to you, regardless. Of
which I'm not sure you could have said, as good as the Klopp era was, and listen, he had his success, but it was a different way. Same players, pretty much, as last year, but it's a different way of doing it, and there's definitely more control. There's definitely more or less worry when they don't have the ball to get it back. There's no, unless they're losing a game, they'll just go and press. But when they're in control of a game, it looks to me as Slot on the touchline is saying, listen, I'm okay for you guys to get back in a decent shape. I'm okay for Mo Salah to look a bit disinterested on that right-hand side, because when they win it back, they'll just pop it over the top and they'll get up and support and they're away. So at the moment, there's not a better side all round in Europe. Again, that doesn't mean that they're going to win the Champions League and all that, because you can have a bad day. Go on, Frank.
Craig and Stevie, I think, we had a perfect game from Liverpool, but we shouldn't get carried away. I mean, the last 3 games of Liverpool haven't been as good as we have seen today. I mean, there were some kind of sloppiness at some point, and we saw that, and Stevie alluded it, and we were worried about how Liverpool was going. It's where I feel they're very good, is because they can react on the top game, on the very important game, they're there. But I think we should, let's step back a little bit, because we don't know what's going to happen. I think they're going to win the Premier League. But lately, the 3 last games that they had before that one, they weren't that very good.
Everton, Wolves, Villa. But can you say that's a good response then after those results?
There's only one problem that you... If you're going up against Liverpool, the only place that you can look at Liverpool and say, we need to exploit that, is what City tried to do today. The 2 fullbacks. After that, good luck.
True.
Good luck. The 2 centre-backs, there's no question, Gabriel and Saliba at one time were the best centre-back pair in the Premier League. Not now. Van Dijk and Konaté are absolutely the best centre-back pair in the league right now. You look at the middle of the park, McAllister, Szoboszlai, and whether it's Jones or anybody else, the way they all work with each other, Gravenberg, the way they combine in terms of football, the way they defend in terms of just rugged strength and wanting to win challenges. And then you've got Salah on the left-hand side. You've got Diaz, who doesn't always have the end product, but every time he picks the ball up, you're on the edge. And if we're on the edge, then the defenders are on the edge. And then if Jota's going to be fit, or if they decide to play... So the only thing you can do, if you want to beat Liverpool, in my opinion, is you get after the 2 fullbacks. But they showed today, even though that's what the opposition did, they all get around them and they bail them out when they need to.
I stand... All those things are great going forward in midfield. I stand corrected if I miss anybody, but there is no better defender at the moment in marshalling a back 4 than Van Dijk. He's back to his... And that's not just today. But anytime, pretty much, whenever a City ball was played through, he'd already seen the pass. And he was there to mop it up, knock it out, or play it back to the goalkeeper. He was... And he's just... Every now and again, he turned around. I saw him turn around, I think it was early in the second half, when they never got enough pressure on the ball. It went in behind, he dealt with it, and then he turned around to one of the full-backs and he was like, tight. You know what I mean? He just a bit like before, he had his cruciate from that challenge at Everton, lost a bit of form, not a surprise, maybe a bit of confidence, a bit of sharpness, but I don't think there's a better defender in Europe at the moment.
Do you remember having a go at somebody after they scored the first goal? Everybody's celebrating, everybody's smiling, everybody's hugging and giving it all that. And he's doing the same, but at the same time, I can't remember who he was talking to, but he had a hold of somebody and he was telling them.
Jones.
Yeah, Jones, you're right, aye. I mean, that's exactly what Craig's talking about. This guy is just not about him, he's about everybody.
And it's the one, and it's the one thing City don't have. They've had these good defenders that have played well, but all of a sudden they're struggling. Akanji, Ake, Diaz, Stones is injured. But when it's been going well for City, it's been going well. But when it's been a struggle, none of those, and those guys are experienced players, none of them have done a very good job when fit of trying to marshal that back four. It seems with City, it's a kind of one for, they're all for each other and they're all trying to do individual jobs and they all get caught sort of all over the place. And that's why I think Liverpool, are going to be, I know we had a graphic last week when the draw was made that Real Madrid and Barca were favourites. I strongly disagree because I think defensively, from those positions we're talking about, Liverpool have the threat going forward, they have the midfield and they have the best defender marshalling a defence in Europe, in my opinion, along with Ibrahim Konate, who's just a powerhouse.
Let's get a word on City then, Frank. Are you buying what Pep Guardiola said after the game, that the future's bright with the young players?
You know what? I have a problem with, what he can say at the end of the day, because it seems to be that positioning the ball is more important than scoring a goal for him. I don't know why. I highly rank Pep Guardiola. He's maybe the best coach in the world, but I'm expecting an answer. I'm expecting a reaction from him. He's still having in his disposal the players that he had when he won the Premier League, and I can't understand that it doesn't work anymore, or at least a little bit better. With Ake, with Diaz, and some others. Yes, you don't have Rodri. Yeah, you have some injured players, but really, I don't get it, because you showed to the world that you were a magician, but you're not anymore. And when you try to find kind of excuses, because we have to respect him, it doesn't work with me. I was so disappointed by the way he doesn't react and he doesn't try to change anything. He keeps being stubborn with something which worked before but doesn't anymore. And you have to be able to react and to offer something else to your club, to your players, to your fans. And he seems to be stuck. Yes, of course, you don't have Rodri. Today you don't have Alan. Diaz was on the bench. So maybe you can find excuses. But you, again, have in your disposal players capable of doing much better than what we saw today. That wasn't enough. It was like, yeah, it's like they played well, but it's Manchester City. It's not a random club. It's Manchester City with players who won all the titles before.
It's been 2-0 both games, I believe, right? 2-0 at Anfield, 2-0 at the Etihad. And Pep Guardiola has gone away happy. In this game, I can't remember totally the game at Anfield, but I know it was dominant from Liverpool's perspective. He's gone away from this one, I think, happy that Liverpool took the foot off the gas. That Liverpool were pretty happy with what they had. That Liverpool did not take any real risks or chances. Because had Liverpool wanted today, I'm absolutely convinced if Liverpool had really opened up in the second half, we'd have been looking at 4 or 5. But I think they just decided, you know what, it's more important to have a good defensive shape. And if we can nick one, because they're not really creating much, if we can nick one and make it 3, fine, which they almost did. But they didn't really push to get a third and get a fourth or get a fifth, which I think they had the gears to do. And I think that tells you where City are. I'm not a big proponent if this is just going to be an easy fix for them. Go in summer and you spend more money, and then all of a sudden he's working the magic again. I don't think it's going to be that easy.
And I think that's one of the differences between Klopp and Slot. Under Klopp, I think they would have done that. They would have tried to make it 4, 5 or 6.
Yep.
Whereas Slot has got them in a mindset of, look, it's not about being bravado and getting as many goals. It's about being in control and winning the game comfortably, without any drama, without any stress. Let's just get it done. We don't need to go at 100 miles an hour. We just need to be in control of what we're doing and win the game comfortably, regardless of who the opposition is.
Well, let's take a look at the title odds right now after Liverpool have gone 11 points clear at the top of the table. Is it over for you, Craig?
Yes. For two reasons. One, for several reasons. The points gap, the Liverpool squad and the way they've gone about it, and the fact Arsenal are tripping over themselves now with the form and the injuries. Let's not forget, Liverpool didn't play with a striker today. They don't have the injuries that Arsenal have. I know that. You know, they're not Salah's not out, like Saka's out, and blah blah blah. But they're finding different ways, and Arsenal, I think, are just struggling. I think Arsenal will finish second. Don't get me wrong, but I can't see them putting together a run that's going to be good enough, or Liverpool are going to have a catastrophic slip-up of 5 or 6 games where they lose 2 or 3 or a couple of draws. I just don't see it happening.
Over and done for you, Frank?
Yeah. I think it is. There is nothing can happen except a catastrophe, like the guys just say, Stevie at the beginning of the show and Craig just now. But what is that?
This is your prediction, seeing as though you wanted to gloat about them.
Yeah, what about
Okay, now when I'm talking about the picture, I'm talking about the pick.
What about Man City?
What about Man City? What about Man United? What about all the ones you got wrong?
Yes, I know, but you know, at least I have one thing right. You know, I don't know where you are. You know, but whatever.
What about Forest?
No, I'm right.
Delegation, Nottingham Forest.
I'm right about the player of the year. I have no interest, and I don't have any interest. Yeah,
Frank, Frankie. That's my favourite. Yeah. That's my favourite answer of the lot. Player of the year. Couldn't give us stuff.
That would be your answer. But yes, there's Frank's predictions. Some of them are all right. Some of them are all right.
Nottingham Forest.
Some of them are right.
Forest relegation. Didn't see that one coming, did you?
But it's true that I know Slot explained that nobody expected to see Manchester City not doing that right and doing that bad, well, let's say. But I felt that there will be something going wrong for City because he's been so perfect for some years, and at some point he has to go wrong. So it would have been that year or the year after, but it would have happened at some point. But it's very interesting to see.
Manchester United won, Fulham won, but Fulham who advanced 4-3 on penalties. New low for United, Craig?
What happened?
What happened was...
I mean, I know they've gone out on penalties, but I've actually subconsciously forgotten.
But this isn't where Leno stood on his head, made lots of saves, that United were unfortunate to be on the losing side. This is where two really poor teams went head-to-head.
I wouldn't say a new low, I'd say another low. I've seen them play worse. There's just another low.
Yeah.
Another low of a youngster in Obi coming on and being better than big money signings. Another low of the lack of creativity. I suppose on another side, De Ligt had a better game, defended better. But this is where they are.
Yeah.
Sort of 15th in the league, out of all the cup competitions. They're still in the Europa League, which somehow they are one of the favourites for. And Fulham are through today, and this wasn't the true Fulham either. No. They didn't play well, but they just did enough and then to win in penalties.
I'm a little bit more surprised at how Fulham played, to be honest with you, because the way Man United play isn't really a surprise. No. They are exactly what they are. I expected Fulham to come here and play better football. Yeah. You know.
But it's Fulham who advance. I just want to go to the touchline now and join Mark Ogden and Hercules Gomez. Mark, I thought something that really summed up this game and maybe the season overall was the growing frustration that we saw from the Manchester United fans in the second half. Just that complete and utter lack of urgency in an FA Cup tie at Old Trafford, where there didn't seem to be anyone who wanted to step up and fight for this team.
Well, apart from Bruno Fernandes, and he's the only one that seems to come to rescue Man United these days. He is their one good player, and beyond that, I think I said at half-time that the fans, you can sense, you can feel their lack of belief in some of these players. They know what they're watching, that the players aren't good enough. And I think, when the young lad Obi came on in the second half, he at least livened things up a little bit. But, listen, it's really hard to find positives from this. You're right, they are still in the Europa League, and I think Craig's being a bit optimistic by suggesting they're one of the favourites, but the name makes them a favourite. But all truth being told, they have to win that competition to get in the Champions League, which sounds ridiculous, but There are so many reasons, financially, status, commercially, why United need to be in the Champions League next season. But let's be honest, to put all their eggs in the basket of the Europa League and be up against teams that they'll probably beat them, it's grim, isn't it? It's very grim.
Well, I'm only going with what the bookies were saying, Oggy, that believe it or not, Man United and Tottenham, two teams that have struggled, are one of the favourites to win it. But I know you mentioned the players there, but is there any doubt thus far? Now, it might be the old adage, no pain, no gain, right? So you have to take the pain for the gain. I think there's a big doubt about that, but I don't think there's any doubt, Oggy, that Ruben Amorim has actually taken this team that was a pretty average team and he's taken them to new lows. He's made them worse.
He has made them worse, and I'm not sure whether that's because they don't understand the system, or they don't want to play the system, or they're a bit sulky. We know these players have moaned and groaned about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tactics, his coaches, Ralf Rangnick, Erik ten Hag, Jose Mourinho was too strict. So maybe these players have just finally got to a coach who isn't putting up with any of that. And you can see, Lindelof played today, but he's hardly had a kick under Amorim because he doesn't rate him. Casemiro the same. There's a lot of players in this squad who know they've got no future under Ruben Amorim. So maybe that is kind of affecting their performances. But beyond that, some of them aren't good enough. But it might sound ridiculous, but I do think that Ruben Amorim is now in a fight for his job because results are so bad. He has to convince the owners. I think the fans are still on side, but he's got to convince the owners that when they get to the summer, that this is the guy they want to back with players that he wants to fit his system. Because if it doesn't work, if they buy £100 million worth of players for Ruben Amorim and they don't work, then 6 months' time after that, you're going to have to get another manager who wants a lot of the set of different players who will fit a different system. So they're in a real mess. So I guess they're going to have to decide pretty soon about Amorim. Is he the guy or not? Because they can't go into the summer with doubts and sign a lot of players on the back of it, because that's just repeating the mistakes they made this year.
You think little Hercules Gomez, growing up, supporting Manchester United, dreamt of one day going to Old Trafford, and we sent you to watch that dross, Herc?
Dan, you say it jokingly, but I turned over to Mark earlier in the second half, and I was like, this isn't the Manchester United Old Trafford experience I thought I was going to get. I'm with Mark. You got to put it on the players. I mean, we could sit here and say Ruben Amorim has made this team worse, but what do you want from the manager who has a certain style of playing, a certain way, a certain system, and you bring it to these players who don't feel comfortable in a high press, who don't feel comfortable going forward, who feel better in a lower block, who feel better off the back foot? You don't have time to work with these players. You got a game every 3 days. I don't necessarily put it on the manager. Yes, they've looked worse, but this has been a downward spiral for over a decade. So it is what it is. If you're a Manchester United fan, it is what it is. If you come out and watch this team, there are very few positives in that second half. Garnacho comes on, and just the willingness to go at players, the willingness to just make a run, even just show some sort of energy, got the crowd into it, got the crowd at least up on their feet somewhat. Obi coming in, the optimism of what a youngster can do, and in his first minutes out there in an FA Cup, that gets this crowd going nowadays. But other than that, it was pretty dreadful. Not only was the match dreadful, but the atmosphere was eerily tense.
What was worse? Herc, the match or having to stand next to Oggy?
Augie's a popular guy out here. They wouldn't let us watch the game. Augie had people coming up to him every 5 minutes.
But I tell you what, we've discussed this before. It would not have solved all the issues, but the summer that they had, there is absolutely no doubt what Man United did in the summer from the end of May, so they had basically the whole of June, July, and best part of August before the season started to make an early decision, a decision that we all knew was inevitable, was to fire Erik ten Hag, a man who clearly wasn't cutting it. He did win the FA Cup, blah, blah, blah. That's a very short-term view. But not only did they keep him, they went out and splurged a couple of $100 million on players, more players. And I feel like I'm repeating myself, but on more players that this new manager now has to try and get out. These mistakes they're just systemic of the bad management, Stevie, at this club.
Amorim's paying the price for that, isn't he? Amorim's the man that's paying the price for that, for those poor decisions. And he was forced to come in at probably the worst time for any coach to come into any team, never mind Manchester United, with what's expected of Manchester United. So Amorim right now is paying for those mistakes. I would, however, say that I'm beginning to change. I was behind Amorim in the way that he was playing. You know, try to teach them, this is how I play, this is how I want to play.
But he has to start thinking a little bit about himself now, because he's getting into the stage of it's getting embarrassing, and people are questioning his ability as a coach. I think he has to change the way they play and do whatever you got to do to get results.
But to what end?
He won't.
To get some sort of respectability.
Mark made the point, you've got a squad full of players that know they're at the end. They know that Amorim doesn't want them. They know they're going to try to find an exit.
You've got to find a way, Dan. When you're the coach,
with who? With what?
But you have to find a way. You have to find a way. And if it means you change the shape and you put them in a different shape and you make teams go all the way outside them, you don't come through the middle of us, just you've got to do whatever you've got to do to get results. Because now it's getting embarrassing. Every time we come on air to talk about United, we are just throwing mud at them because they're so bad. And at the end of the day, Amorim's the coach and he has to get results. And you have to do what you've got to do to get them. It's one thing to be in a position where you can look to the future and you can try and build a culture of this is how we play and this is how I play. But it's now at the stage where it's about, it doesn't matter how you play, it's about getting results.
You look at Man City, though, they're having a bad time.
Stevie,
they're going out, sorry, okay, they're going out and play, they're spending money in January, they're probably going to spend again. Oggy touched on it before the game. United's financial scenario with all the profit and sustainability, amongst other things, they don't have that ability to go out and spend unless they sell a bunch of players. Now, Amorim's talking about the future and how they're going to restructure in the summer. Bruno Fernandes apart, who's going to buy, unless they're selling them for a song, who's going to buy any of these United players? Who's going to turn up and say, I'll give you 40 million for him, 60 million for him, 70 million for him? It's not. It's like, we'll take him for free, we'll take him on a loan, we'll pay his wages for 6 months or a year, we'll give you 10 million. They're not going to be able to generate the cash from player sales to be able to go and restructure this squad and buy the calibre of player that they need. So I really don't see how he's going to solve that anytime soon.
Go on, Oggy.
Steve, on Stevie's point about Amorim's going to have to make some changes, or maybe change the way he plays the team, and I do kind of agree with that, but one thing that's kind of nagging away at me a little bit is, if he does that, if he goes to 4-3-3 or 4-4-2 or whatever, and they start winning games, what happens in the summer when he wants to go back to 3 at the back, because that's his system? The players will be like, well, hang on, it didn't work, and now we got back to where we wanted to be by playing 4 at the back, and now he wants to go 3. It ruins his kind of credibility, if he's got any credibility left. If he says, right, we'll be 4 at the back until the summer, and then he goes to 3 in the summer, it's like, well, the 3 didn't work. So he's confusing the players, and so I suppose he has to stick with what he believes in. Otherwise, it's proving that he doesn't have the right system, and he's in a catch-22 situation, really. He's got bad players who can't play his system, and the system that he wants to play, or that he played before, they weren't very good at either. Let's be honest, he got Ten Hag the sack, so I don't know what he does. I just think he has to kind of hold his nose until the end of the season and hope for the best.
Hold his nose till the end of the season.
And shut his eyes.
You underwater.
It's lovely advice from Mark Ogden.
Cover his ears.
Here is the Manchester United coach.
Sarah Mulcairns with Ruben Amorim. Well, Ruben, firstly, how difficult is that loss to take?
Yeah, it's hard. We managed to score in the second half after that goal in set pieces near the half time, and then it's harder for us to go and press a little bit high, but we managed to do it. We score. I think we had the best chances in the game. Sometimes we drop a little bit the lines to be comfortable, but in the end the penalties can go both ways, and today was not our day.
You made a lot of changes, but your bench was depleted. Did you feel you had enough from the team to get you through the 90 and then extra time and penalties?
It's important to say that with the substitutions, we had our chance to win the game. We were compact. We fight for the game, and that is the most important thing.
And why do you think those chances aren't coming off for your players up front?
I think we are better in the first ball and the second ball, and then Arne sometimes he's not in the right position to defend, but in the perfect position for transition, and we know that, and try to use that. And I think it's also sometimes the quality of the players. Bruno, also Casemiro, Josh is improving a lot. The connection, he's fighting for every ball. He's running all the pitch. So it's the quality of the players that help us to create more chances.
And how do you cope when something goes to penalties? What do you do from the sideline when sometimes it's a toss of a coin, isn't it?
I try to relax the players, and they know that we need to is something that is technical, but also is the moment. You have to be relaxed, confident, and is that we try to do before the penalties.
And look, it's been a tough start to your Manchester United managerial career. What does this loss and going out of the FA Cup, and as holders in particular, what do you think that does to this team?
The goal is to win the Premier League. So I know that we are losing games and losing trophies during this season, but the goal is to win the Premier League again. I don't know how long it's going to take, but that is our goal. If you think like that, we can suffer a little bit in these defeats, a lot sometimes, but we have a goal, so we continue to, no matter what, you continue forward.
Do you sense from the first 3 months, do you have a sense on how long that might take?
No, it's impossible to know, but you start understanding. I think the players are better. We understand better the league. We know what to do with the squad, what is the future, and we'll see in the future.
And then finally, even more importance on that trip in Europe this week?
Yes, it's really important, but we have to recover the players, try to push for the other players that are out, because like you saw today, they were really tired, and then we have in 3 days to a game, then again here at Old Trafford against Arsenal 2 days after. So we have to cope with that. Just a lot of videos, recovery, and we will be ready for the game.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
We're really having Premier League discussions here.
He can't believe anything he just said.
No.
He can't believe his players are getting better.
And reporters asking how long do you think that is going to take? I mean, really, we're in moo-moo land here. We really are in moo-moo land. They're 15th in the Premier League, one of the worst teams in the Premier League. It's one of the worst teams in United's history. It's almost like, trying to get a baby to ride a bike and run before it can even sit up. I mean, we're miles and miles and miles away from any of that. This is a club that are laying low-level, minimum wage staff off. It's so desperate behind the scenes. So he seems like a nice guy. I think he's come in, he's over his head. Right, Sporting Lisbon, fine. Portugal, fine. This job is just a humongous job, and it's not his mess, but he's got the mess. Yeah. And I think at the moment he's just struggling to come up with anything that's tangible and sensible about how we can move forward, and how, Xerxes is getting better and the spaces are getting better and Casemiro. And I mean, it's frustrating to listen to. I think he wishes, I bet he wishes he'd sat down, thought about it longer, and known what he was getting into. He probably wouldn't have taken this job because it stinks.
Augie?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. He actually wanted to come in the summer, didn't he? That was the idea. It wanted to wait until the end of the season, which is probably a bit naive and kind of not realistic. United weren't going to put up with an interim coach for 6-7 months. They had that with Ralph Rangnick. It didn't work. But, I mean, this thing about winning the Premier League, that don't forget the new CEO said about 6 months ago that they want to win it by 2028, which is the 150th anniversary, which is, again, very optimistic. That's 3 years away. And they might not even be in the Championship or the Premier League by then. We don't know. But look, I mean, they're in a mess, and their season now, it's hard to kind of overstate how important the Europa League is. It was way more important than the FA Cup, but at least the FA Cup had a route to the Europa League. But if United don't win the Europa League, which is a really tall order, they're not going to be in Europe next season. So massive hits to the finances. Even things like playing games at Old Trafford, it's worth about £4 to £5 million a game. They'll miss 4 or 5 games in Europe. So everywhere you look, there's a massive financial problem coming United's way, and I don't really think they're going to win the Europa League. So they are going to have to face the fact that they've got, a summer coming where they have to get rid of lots of players. We're talking about getting rid of players like, the free transfers are going to go. Lindelof and Eriksen, they're going. But, what you do with Casemiro, with Marcus Rashford, they're still under contract, both earning over £300,000 a week. So, Marcus Rashford's had a couple of assists at Aston Villa, great, but he's not. Are they going to spend, £40 million on him and pay his wages? No. Who's going to sign Casemiro? I mean, it's worth £15 million on the books because of the way that they do the account. So who's going to pay £15 million for him? Nobody. Who's going to pay him wages? Nobody. And then you get into Mason Mount, Luke Shaw. There's so many players.
Maybe Anthony.
And Anthony, yeah. I mean, how do they get money back for Anthony? So there's so many players that are no use to Man United that they're stuck with. So I don't know how they get out of this situation. he talks about suffering. There's going to be suffering for 2 or 3 more years, and I'm not sure how many more managers are going to be having to suffer the mistakes of predecessors.
The first thing they have to do is get a reality check. They need to, you know, if the CEO's talking about winning it by 28, he's clearly not on the same planet as the rest of us. And Amarin's coming out, and the things he just said 5 minutes ago, we're scratching our head here, we're all shaking our head, wondering what he's on about. You can't start climbing the mountain unless you get realistic and figure out exactly where the problems are and how to solve them. And it doesn't sound right now, whether it's the coach or the people upstairs, actually have got a hold of reality. And until they do, nothing's going to change.
It's also got a big problem, I think, attracting players now to United. All right, you might say, well, money.
Yeah.
But players will get good money elsewhere, big money.
Like how many people were fighting for the players that they've brought in? You know, the likes of De Ligt who've come in. Like there wasn't a big bun fight over those sort of players, and that's the problem that United seem to have continually had. Mason Mount, obviously,
injuries,
big
Luke Shaw, injuries.
Yeah.
Again, you're not going to. People don't want to take players that are perceived to be a problem, be it with their attitude. Marcus Rashford, big wages. You know, Villa have taken a low risk on him with a loan. But then you look at the others like Mount and Luke Shaw, who have just had an absolute catalogue of injuries. That's the same as a bad attitude. You know, managers just don't want to take, clubs don't want to take that financial risk with these players on these long-term big contracts. They might take them on incentivised, short-term sort of pay-as-you-play sort of scenario. Maybe you can get something that way, but those guys are sort of ruling themselves a move. As Augie said, Casemiro, his career's just sort of winding down now, has been for a while. You know, who's going to pay back the money for Rasmus Højlund that they paid from? Who's going to pay back the money for Josie Zirkzee that they paid from? And definitely, even though he's playing well at Real Betis at the moment, and he's had a nice bright start over there, there's nobody even paying half the amount that United paid for Anthony. It's just not happening.
Meanwhile, a word on Fulham before we let the boys go. Hercules, obviously, you're going to interview Anthony Robinson, who it looks like scored, of course, the winning penalty.
Yeah, it scores the winning penalty. I don't think it was his best game. A little bit heavy-footed today. Fulham didn't play their best game. You know, I shouldn't really say that because if you look at it, United's best player is probably Onana. If you think about it, he was probably their best player. Some key saves. Fulham pressed when they needed to. It wasn't by any means a spectacular game, but it's the first time since 1908 when Stevie was around that they beat Fulham.
Forget letting his manager down. Forget letting himself down. That's almost a career-ending challenge. When you make no attempt to play the ball, as was the case here, and you have the intent to go in and challenge in that manner, the fact that Blanco's studs were not planted in the ground has probably saved him, because once your cleats plant in the ground, and when that challenge comes in, there's nowhere for the leg to go. The foot's planted, you've got your knee there, and so something has to give. And usually that is an ACL at best, or a broken leg when you snap a bone. And I'm not trying to embellish this sort of story here. That's how bad that challenge was. Now, we don't know what they're going to do in Spain in terms of the governing bodies with suspension, but they're going to come down on him as hard as they can, because this is not a normal challenge where you mistime it, it's a little high, you went for the ball, you were a bit over-aggressive. These things can happen. That was a clear intent, in my opinion, to go in with no thought at all of playing the ball and trying to injure an opposing player. That's quite a bad mindset to be in. When your team is struggling, like Real Madrid are, when you have this huge game on Wednesday, when you have a manager in Carlo Ancelotti who's respected all around the world, and he's getting pelters, absolute pelters from the media in Spain, and you're the star man. You're the star man, and that's how you repay him. That's how you repay your manager and your teammates when you're in a moment that you're needed the most, Kay, and you go out and your one thought is to go and try and snap an opponent's leg in half. An utter disgrace. I hope he gets banned from the Copa del Rey. I hope they throw the book at him. Maybe Real Madrid will be better with Rodrigo and Vinicius Junior up front, and his ego away by the side. Maybe that will help them. So we'll see what happens. But what we do know today is that there's no place in professional sport for that kind of challenge.
Absolutely not, absolutely. So Real Madrid do come through this one with all 3 points. However, they've lost Kylian Mbappe. We'll be finding out for just how long and what suspension he will get for that red card. It is 4 points between themselves and Barcelona in the table after Barcelona's win over Leganés yesterday. Meanwhile, at the bottom end of the table, there had been a bit of a pickup in form from Alaves recently as they look to avoid relegation. They do remain outside of the bottom 3 as it stands, even with that loss. Luis Garcia watching for us and back with us now. Luis, obviously all the headlines tomorrow are not going to be about Real Madrid coming back and getting the 3 points. They're going to be all about Kylian Mbappe's red card, and you can understand why.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it was really a very good situation for him, but definitely something that needs to think about. These kind of moments are very crucial for Real Madrid. He cannot be thinking, it has to be focused because Real Madrid is going to need from him. And these kind of mistakes, really bad mistakes, are really reckless challenge. That moment can have the opportunity to injure one of a teammate, even though there is an opponent. And I'm sure that we'll hear from him right after the game, apologizing by this moment. But again, normally we talk a lot about the referees, and today we have to congratulate the fantastic calls that the Sotogrado has made, because even though that they've been a little bit controversial, most of them, I think they did it very good. It was calm, it was composed, went to the VAR, and VAR today did a fantastic job, because at some points, even us that we see the replays, we had our doubts. So a very good job from the referee today.
When you explain the apples and oranges in the 2 red cards, there is a big difference to what we saw from both of the players and the challenges there.
Yeah, they're both reds, but the second red for the Alaves player, he's almost, the ball's coming, he's sort of half watching Vinicius and half watching the ball, and he pokes his, he sort of hangs his leg out as if he's trying to play the ball, and he does catch Vinicius high up down the back of the knee calf. It's not got anywhere near the force or the intent that Kylian Mbappe had. Again, it's apples and oranges. They're completely different. One challenge at worst would probably have grazed and cut Vinicius Junior. You don't want to see that. The other one potentially would have broken a leg and ended a career. That's completely different. I was just thinking, Luis, I was talking to Kay about it. Well, I'm sure you've played in games like I have where players have had a broken leg or really bad injuries. And when you see something like this, that's really not a genuine attempt or any attempt to play the ball whatsoever, there really is no place in the game for a challenge like that these days.
So it's really dangerous. And again, we are totally against any aggression or intent to injury. I'm sure that his intention wasn't to injure a player, but definitely to go and hurt him.
Yeah,
what I'm surprised about, in a sense, was the calmness of the Alaves players, because I know from my experience when we saw challenges that we deemed were just trying to, we used to call it doing somebody. You're going to go in and you're going to do them.
Because it looked like that's what he was doing here. It looked as though he had some personal vendetta with him.
I'm surprised the Alaves players never reacted and we didn't see some sort of brawl. Which, I'm not condoning, but I'm just saying when you have a teammate put at risk like that from that kind of ridiculous challenge, as a teammate and as a friend, you sort of react. And the Alaves players didn't react. Maybe it just took them by surprise. Mbappe, he's not. What was that all about? But at the end of the day, he will suffer the consequences that he suffers via the governing bodies. We talked about the game itself in terms of, Barcelona didn't play well yesterday but got the 3 points. That's all Real Madrid had to do today. That's exactly what they did. They scrapped it out. They got the 3 points. But again, if they play like that, which is how they have been playing, if they play like that in midweek, they will not score 3 or 4 goals against Arsenal. So they're going to have to find something. They're going to have to look themselves in the mirror and see what they're all about for this game in midweek. But the Mbappe situation apart, which I know they're going to talk about on our FC show later today in great detail, they're going to have a full day with that one. Regardless of his actions today, Real Madrid did what they had to do. And that was for a title race. That was the most important thing.
They did. I just want to do the one last point on the Mbappe thing. As a teammate of his, are you annoyed at him for a challenge like this?
we've all had teammates sometimes that the red mist comes down, and sometimes it's hard to be annoyed at when you sometimes make mistakes yourselves and get sent off and do something that affects the team. A bit more of what, you know, I think what's more annoying sometimes is a lack of work rate, a lack of desire, a mindset of, and he's had it with France, and Didier Deschamps has said this publicly. It's almost a refusal to do the work of others. He wants others around him to do the work for him. Now, he's not alone at Real Madrid, and Ancelotti has touched on that. Vinicius Junior as well has been guilty of this. But these things are equally as annoying as you know, it's not as serious as a potential leg breaker, but you get annoyed as that as a player. So I don't know, we've all sort of done, I don't remember in my career, I've made some bad challenges, I've made some late challenges. I don't remember ever, and we don't see, I was talking to the producer about this earlier, try to think back when we've seen one this bad at elite level. You know, we've seen late ones, we've seen high ones, but when we've seen one this bad at elite level, you've got to scratch your head and come up with something. You might have to go back a good few years. I'm sure I'll stand corrected on that one. But it's Kylian Mbappe, it's Real Madrid, it's a superstar, it's a struggling team, it's a struggling player, it's a struggling manager, and that's what he does against Alaves, little old Alaves who are in the relegation. These guys don't get paid the huge sums. It could have been career-ending. It was disgraceful, as Stuart Robson said. I don't know any more words to throw at this. Quite frankly, it makes me angry when I see a challenge like that. And thankfully, the consequences for Blanco seem to be okay. And as a sports person, you can be thankful for that, because you know, when you go out in that field and you're committed, it can change. It can change in a heartbeat. And it might be, you know, something innocuous, and it might be something like a player making a challenge like that. So you go into the day as a professional football player, and you come out of the day sometimes, or out of a game, and your career might be in tatters.
Do you believe him when he says that?
No, I don't. As you get closer to potentially winning something, you do tend to play your strongest team, particularly when you're falling off the cliff in your domestic league. But you could go back through a bunch of games in the Premier League that they lost, and he's played his strongest team. And when you're playing your strongest team, the strongest team you can because of your injuries, and he did have a lot, then you're not prioritising, you're just playing poorly. And I think, to be honest with you, that's him trying to make an excuse for their performances during the second half of the season in particular. Yeah, he prioritised this competition at Aston Villa a week or a few days before, because he played the weakest side that he's played all season. But that was only the one game before the Europa League final. Manchester United did the opposite, which I think was borderline stupid, if I'm being honest with you. They played possibly their strongest team at Chelsea. At least he weakened his and gave some of his stars a rest. It didn't show much in the final because Tottenham didn't play particularly well. United, to be fair, were the better side, but it was a horrible, horrible standard. But I do not believe that he was prioritising the Europa League final over the Premier League. I think one competition he played well in. He dug out a result against Frankfurt, particularly away from home in Germany at the end when they were up against it. And in the Premier League, they were easy meat. They were too easy to play against. They were too easy to beat. And now the big question going forward, I'm not going to get into it, but we're all waiting on what Daniel Levy is going to do in the coming weeks. I don't think it'll be any longer than that, because even Tottenham fans are saying, this is great, but can we have a season as poor as that next year in the Premier League? And I think the answer is a clear no.
Jan, isn't it just as simple as the quality of opposition in the Europa League wasn't as high as the Premier League, so therefore he didn't get caught?
I think it's a combination of different things. I think that the both games against Eintracht Frankfurt and the two games against Bodo Glimt showed that he adjusted more in the Europa League than in the Premier League. In the Premier League, he was very stubborn on his style, even if he said he concentrated more on the Europa League. So even the game in Bodo, when they played on AstroTurf, I was impressed how they adjusted. Yes, that opposition can't compare that with any Premier League team, but you have to give him that. And I mean, I mean, can you imagine that cigar that he is smoking tonight when you think of his statement, I always win in the second season? And I heard you on the show talking about Conte, who always leaves in his second season. I mean, he wins in the first season. And here's Postecoglou just predicting all these kind of things. So you have to give him that. And yeah, Craig, I do understand, and we learned from Erik ten Hag winning the FA Cup, maybe was not the greatest idea to keep them on. But for so many years where you haven't won anything, was it 17 years now since they won anything? And they get a win. I saw a table now showing how many days since last time the different Premier League teams had won anything, and but Tottenham is 1 or 2 days. So let them have this, and I'm not sure what would we have done. Yes, they've had a terrible season in the Premier League, but they won a title. Maybe Levy should stay with Postecoglou. Yeah.
You old romantic, Jan. You know it isn't romantic. Robbo, heart of stone. What says you, Robbo?
Winning. No, but it's all about winning trophies. Over to you, Arsenal player.
I mean, yes, I think trophies are great for him, but you can't come one off the relegation zone and say you've had a good season and be a good manager or be a good coach for this season. They had fairly weak opposition in the Europa League, barring Eintracht Frankfurt. They just haven't played well enough defensively or on the ball. And he can't. He's fought with the crowd. He's mocked the crowd on occasions.
They weren't really trying in the Premier League. That's it. They were trying in the Europa League.
Exactly. I mean, that's an absolute load of rubbish. I mean, how a manager can say, "Oh yeah, I didn't really try in the Premier League because they were league games. They didn't matter. I prioritised the Europa League." No manager does that. I mean, he's trying to pull the wool over the media's eyes, which he's not going to do. I think he's probably got to go, and I think he probably will.
I think I'll tell you one thing he's got. Great timing.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Because in any other season, this was the first season with the new format of the Champions League and the Europa League and the Conference League that the Champions League teams didn't drop into Europa League, which would have made it a hell of a lot stronger. And the likelihood of Tottenham winning that was, and the likelihood of Tottenham and Man United being in the final was probably about 0%, maybe 1 at best. So his timing was very good in that sense that fell into his lap, and this has potentially saved his season, saved his job. We just don't know. We just don't know. What's Levy's mindset? I mean, what's Levy's mindset? Here he is with this club, with a beautiful new stadium, with the gravitas of the Champions League, with the money that brings, but they'll have to spend to be competitive. They'll have to spend to be better in the Premier League. Has he gained enough trust? Does he believe, Daniel Levy and all the cohorts that finance Tottenham Hotspur, that this domestic, horrendous second half of the season in particular was solely down to all the injuries they had? Was it solely down to that? Or was it a combination of the injuries that may have been sustained because the way the manager approaches training and he approaches games? Or was it because Postecoglou did not grasp the reality of the Premier League and how you have to go about it? But Craig, that's going to be the big question, Jan. I haven't got the answer to that.
No, I haven't got an answer. But coincidentally, on Wednesday, I was at FIFA. I had a meeting at FIFA. And then I met a guy called Arsene Wenger. And the first thing I said to him, what do you think about this thing about the Champions League? And what do you think about Europa League teams getting into the Champions League? And I will not tell what he said, but Craig, I think he agreed with you. I think that was Manchester United, it was Tottenham, all those kind of things. And of course, that timing is good for him that the Champions League team didn't come down. But I tell you another thing he got, Craig, that not many managers in England don't have, a trophy.
So 2-0 it finished. We also got to see Rodri come on in the 60th minute for just his second appearance since September. He came on for Phil Foden, but it was Phil Foden who got man of the match in this game. As it stands right now, Manchester City are in the top of their group. Next up for them is Al Ain. Juventus are also in the same group as City. But let me start with you, Nedum, on Phil Foden. Is he going to be a first choice starter in the new season? Is he throwing his hat into the ring and saying next season's going to be better?
Oh, that's a good question. I think this is a good way to start, with the goal and with the assist. And I don't necessarily think he was brilliant in the game outside of those moments. But it's good to see him start there and to have some of that link-up and to have a positive impact. I think the timing of that goal was great for him as well, because he's been very well spoken about that in this last season. It's been terrible for him, relatively speaking, given the fact he was Premier League Player of the Season the year before. But I think some of the link-up was there. There was certain bits of rust and decision-making in terms of not knowing whether to pass to the person at this time, are you in the right position? But I think that chemistry will come. I think looking at some of the talent that they have, especially now with those attacking areas, I think the link-up play has got potential to be really, really good. So for him to be off the mark and in that manner, it makes Pep think about it. And I think for these group games, Guardiola's spoken about how he's going to be making changes. So this game itself is great. It'll probably look different in the next game. But if they do make it to knockout rounds, then that's when you see what Guardiola really sees as being his best side. Because I think that's when the players who he really has all his faith and all his belief in, they'll start to be starting these games and they'll be playing longer periods as well. But for now, Foden's in there. And I'd say it's good to see him back.
Phil Foden, new season ahead. Fresh start for him.
Well, he had a bad time with England. He had a bad season by his standards last year, there's no doubt. But there's also no doubt he is a supreme talent. Now, dare I say it, he's not the only one at Man City, but maybe he could look in the mirror a little bit more and say, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough in terms of my training and the lifestyle and all the stuff that you have to do in this day and age that we didn't really have to do? But today's modern game demands it. And it was kind of sorry to see him be the way he was last year when we've witnessed over the last couple of years prior to that, we've seen him destroy teams. I mean, some of those performances, I remember the game at Anfield, one of the games at Anfield when he played on the right-hand side, coming in on his left foot, pinging the ball in the top corner and just running amok. And I don't know why he got away from that, but, maybe just confidence as well. But he certainly can get back to it. I think City are just an intriguing story, full stop. Because everybody's waiting to see if they can get back to somewhat of this juggernaut team that everybody was frightened to death to play, apart from probably Liverpool and Arsenal. They've bolstered the middle of the park with Reinders coming in from Milan. Nico Gonzalez was signed for 60 million last January. He hasn't played much, and Rodri's obviously back fit again, so they've bolstered that area. So that shouldn't be such an issue in terms of getting dominated in the middle of the park. Again, the questions will be, the playmakers that they had that lost their form, Foden, Savinho, Grealish struggled, Doku inconsistent, Marmoush came in and looked lively. Can they supply Erling Haaland? And can he figure out a back line that is consistent and has some continuity and can cut out the basic sort of mistakes that they were making? So I think there's so many subplots for Manchester City, but of course Phil Foden getting back to form would certainly help. But I think in these games you're not going to learn a lot apart from, I was going to say players getting their fitness, but I don't know if actually that's what they're doing at this stage of June.
Frank, you watched this game. What stood out to you on the City side of things?
Well, that's funny when Nathan was talking about the good start for Foden. I was thinking that it was more an ending of a season than the start of a new season. I don't think they are in a pre-season. In my mind, they're more finishing the previous season, but whatever. But, it's a little bit better, I would say, at some point. And but overall, we could see that the WAC had some chances to score goals, that they're still fragile at the back. They're still looking for something special, but I think they won't find it. It's too early. To make a statement about Foden is too early. To everything, to all the criticals that we can get, I will be too early. But it's a good win. I was happy to see Cherki playing. Even if he had a shy start, he has to settle down. He doesn't speak English. He will have to understand what Pep wants from him. But that was interesting to see him playing alongside some others. And let's see how it works for Manchester City. But I'm not convinced. I didn't see anything changing tactically with the pace of the game. It's the same City that I've seen the whole season long before.
City bore, Frank.
To
be fair, they bored most of us at the end of last year. You have the answer to this question. You must have the answer to Frank's question.
The answer to Frank's
We're not continuing with this show until you have the answer to Frank's question. Are we at the end of last season or are we at the beginning of the new season?
Yeah, what came first, the chicken or the egg, Frank?
Don't get no.
Frank, it's the beginning.
Well, I mean, it's really. It does feel like it's at the end, but it's probably technically is the end. It is the end, but it feels like it's the beginning.
So is Modric staying to the start of the new season, or is he finishing the end of the season?
You know who'll know the answer to this? Nader Manua.
That's right, I do. And let's put it this way. Is the Gold Cup happening at the end of the last season or the start of the new one? Would the Euros be the start of the next one or the end of the last one? I think this is essentially the closing off of the season. But because it's club-based, it feels a bit different. They'll finish this tournament, have 3 weeks off, happy days. It's the last bit of season.
All right, I don't want it to go down a rabbit hole.
No, we shouldn't.
Tendency to go down a rabbit hole. Particularly with stuff like this. So that's fine. I just thought I'd ask the question.
You know who'll definitely have an opinion on this is Gab Marcotti. Maybe we could make sure he answers that question on the latest Gab and Jules show. That podcast will be dropping wherever you do get your podcasts out twice a week. Make sure to stay up to date.
Sunday then sees the final of the Club World Cup. Chelsea taking on a PSG. Mark Ogden, whether he likes it or not, has been trailing the teams, of course, in the knockout stages. He hasn't been particularly happy with the heat he's had to suffer. He's got company today and got a little bit of revenge on Alexis, considering she's been very much enjoying the AC over the last couple of days.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Now I know why Augie has been complaining about standing out here in the heat all day. But we move. It was all worth it to just get some reaction from Chelsea as they wrapped up their final media day activities before that Club World Cup final. Probably the biggest challenge of Enzo Maresca's career at Chelsea so far, which is the game against PSG. He likened it to a game of chess, a game that he says he loves watching, he loves to see, because he believes that you have to win it up here first. Augie, what did you make of what Chelsea had to say and how they are found before this final?
Yeah, I thought Maresca was kind of bullish. He was asked a question saying, you won't have much of the ball, and he said, who said? How do you know? Well, I thought we all know that PSG are going to dominate possession, especially have 3 midfield. Chelsea will have 2. It looks like Caicedo will be fit, Moses Caicedo, which is a massive, massive bonus, but there'll still be 2 in midfield unless he changes his tactics. So Maresca's confident. He's always quite confident and quite spiky, but he did say it's like a game of chess, but I hope he's good at chess, because he needs to be really good at chess to win this game. I think it's really hard for Chelsea to win this game no matter what, even if they have their best team out. I don't think any Chelsea player gets in the PSG team, but it's a one-off game. He did reference the fact that Al Hilal beat Man City, Fluminense beat Inter Milan, Botafogo beat PSG. It's possible, but I was at this game on Wednesday, the semi-final. They hammered Real Madrid PSG. It's going to be so hard for Chelsea.
Is going to be hard for Chelsea. Another thing that's going to be hard is a 3 p.m. kickoff in this heat. Is something we've been talking about throughout this tournament, and you can bet that Reece James and Enzo Maresca had to field questions about the heat and playing under this sunshine come Sunday in the press conference. Here's what they had to say.
It's already 1 month we are here, so now we are used to to play with this condition. It will be for us, will be for them, so it's for both teams.
The climate is so hot, no one in Europe is used to this heat, playing at 3 o'clock in, the hottest time of the day is super difficult for us to adapt.
El calor es increíble, la verdad no sé. El otro día, me mareé un poco en una jugada, me tuve que tirar al piso porque la verdad que estaba mareado, la verdad que jugar a esa temperatura es muy peligroso.
How much of a factor do you think is going to play?
I don't think it plays a factor at all, because PSG is the same for PSG. They've all got European players, South American players, British players. It's the same sort of mix. The situation that will define it is that PSG keep the ball better. Chelsea will have to run around the pitch more. It's hot, so that'll make it harder for Chelsea. So that's how the heat will make an impact.
Ultimately, how do you see this going, Augie?
PSG win easily. We were saying before the way here that PSG have played 3 European teams. 4-0, 2-0, 4-0. That's 10-0 in aggregate. I think Chelsea are going to be another one that loses quite heavily to PSG.
All right, well, Chelsea saying all the right things before their big final, but Dan, it's going to be a massive uphill battle for them. But Reece James says he doesn't care about stats or previous forms from teams. They're just going to go out there and prepare themselves as best as they can for this task.
Thank you very much. By the way, Augie's written an article about the heat. And about what lessons, in fact, FIFA can learn looking ahead to the World Cup next summer.
The more that you hear some players talk, the more the mind boggles, really. Sometimes you just think, who's educating these players to press conferences these days? Take Reece James for an example. When he said, we're the most British people, maybe British people a lot of them come to the United States. They travel all over the world. But where do the majority of British people go for their summer holidays? They go to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Reece James just sat there and said, well, you know, the temperatures over here, we're just not used to it because Europeans are not used to that. The British people go to Spain and they go to Italy.
But I suppose they don't go to play football. That's the thing, isn't it? They go there to the beach, they go to enjoy the heat. They're not used to...
He's just said the Europeans are not used to this. We have Enzo Maresca, who's another one that's been whining about it, and he's not been the only one. He's Italian. When the Italian season kicks off in August, it'll be 90 degrees, as it will be in Spain, as it will be in Croatia, as it will be in most places in sort of Western Europe. In the summer, it gets damn hot in Western Europe. That's why most Brits take the 2-hour or 2.5-hour flight for their holidays there. And yet we have players and managers sitting saying Europeans are not used to the temperatures in America in the summer. I mean, what absolute drivel. The one thing that I think some of them are not used to, and it has been more prevalent this year, is the humidity. The humidity has been worse than the heat this year. I'll give you that. Yep. But please don't talk about Europeans not being used to the heat when all these Italians and Spanish and all these other countries kick off the season and it's 90 degrees in their country. It's utter stupidity and a silly statement.
I'm looking forward to reading that article.
Oh, good.
According to Augie, the players in the teams have learned some lessons about the heat.
Right.
Learn what?
Did he not mean FIFA?
You have to drink water.
What have you learned?
Drink water regularly. You can't do anything, no?
No.
To prepare. I remember speaking to you when you were coaching the Revs.
The only thing you can do is make sure you keep the ball and take care of the ball.
Okay.
Because if you don't, as Augie said at the start of that, the reason PSG is going to beat Chelsea is because they're going to be taking care of the ball. And when you're the team running around in that heat, eventually...
Yep.
You flag.
You talked about this a week or so ago. Most of the players, some of them would, but most of them would not be whining if this was the World Cup. Right?
Proper World Cup.
You feel the heat and you feel the humidity and you feel tiredness when you're playing in a competition that you really shouldn't be playing in because it's the end of the season. That's the crux of this matter. If this was a bona fide competition, if this was the World Cup, that when you're a kid, you give your right arm to play in, you're not thinking about the heat. You're not thinking about any of that.
Your day in Mexico, Stevie, against Germany.
There you go.
Exactly. There was not one person from any team in that World Cup playing in Mexico that ever mentioned in press conferences about how hot it was and how tough it is playing at 2 o'clock. Nobody mentioned it. It was all football. It was all about why they lost, why they won. Nothing to do with the weather at all. And that's, again, because it's not a proper World Cup.
All right, well, here is how Manchester United have fared under Ruben Amorim in the Premier League, and the stats don't really paint a lovely picture. There you see 7 wins, 7 draws in 29 games, but it's the 15 losses that really put a damper on things. Plus, in those games, 33 goals and 44 allowed. Gentlemen, let's start. Shaka said it to me. Shaka literally said it to me. What a difference a week makes. We were talking about the improvements we saw in what was a loss against Arsenal. Fast forward to now. Does it feel like a step back, Craig?
Well, a couple of things. It was a really good 10 minutes, first 10, 15 from United, particularly from Cunha, but from United in general. And then Fulham figured them out and started to dominate the midfield and actually gave as good as they got, if not better, for the majority of the game. We just heard from the manager. I want to talk about the captain. I want to talk about that incident with the penalty kick, because I know Shaq's got strong feelings about this as well. What a whingy, whiny, little moaning pain in the butt. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment to a professional footballer that the referee inadvertently nudged him as he was trying to back off, having everybody in position. And yet he made out, and this, Shaq said this to me, he made out that the referee had almost run into him on the process of him running up to take the penalty. That's how
threw it off his routine.
That's how egregious he thought that was. It was. I was sitting watching it going, what a big kid. Any player worth his salt would have laughed that off and would have taken that penalty within 10 seconds. And yet he whined and moaned and cried, as he generally does, about something so innocuous, it was embarrassment, and that whole process just formulated in his little brain, and then he puts the penalty over, which he may have done anyway, I don't know. But the process that led up to it, makes me just believe the mindset of Bruno Fernandes is so discombobulated it's embarrassing. Because to me, that isolated scenario in the game encapsulate a lot of his career at Man United, which has been good. A lot of it has been good, but there's been a sideshow to the Bruno Fernandes performances, and we saw it again there today. I thought it was embarrassing beyond belief.
So, but here's the thing, right? So there's a lot about this game that surely we have to discuss, but let's start here with Bruno Fernandes. And here's why old school players like ourselves continue to question Bruno Fernandes and his role as captain for Manchester United. That cost Manchester United 2 points today. No question, right? So during the game, watching here in the US, a lot of the commentary, a lot of the discussion was about whether that bump put him off, whether it should have put him off, whatnot. Immediately after the game, I see Bruno Fernandes does an interview and says, no, that didn't put me off. I reset, everything was fine, I just struck the ball really poorly. Later on, at some point, he does another interview and says, well, yeah, the referee bumped me. And then what really wound me up was he didn't apologize. Now, as you look at the replay, it's the slightest of bumps. Look how much Bruno Fernandes, this is of his own doing, makes of this. Look at how long he stays standing, glaring at the referee. That's unwarranted. It's a bump. It's a bump. How is that an excuse for that execution in this game, in this physical a game? And that for me is why, again, Bruno Fernandes comes in for as much criticism as he does. Misses that penalty, doesn't track Smith Rowe for the Fulham goal. And again, we're talking about still Manchester United's most talented player, Manchester United's captain, but I think reneging on his role and responsibility as the on-the-park leader.
How does that put you off a routine? What's your routine? You put the ball in the spot. The keeper plays a game of bluff, as keepers do. You got to make a decision in your mind. Where am I putting the ball? Am I going down the middle? Am I hitting it with pace? Or am I going for accuracy? That's the routine. He made such a song and dance about it. It became the story of that moment. It just became the story. But I for one, thought it just gave you an insight into the mindset of him. And I thought it was beyond embarrassing. In fact, I thought it was almost childish, school playground kind of stuff. I think we also saw two sides to Cunha today. He was absolutely brilliant for 15 minutes. And then tell me something else he did before he put a great cross in the 89th minute or whenever it was. And that sort of is him in a nutshell. You know, he didn't get his goal. And then he goes on the missing list because he's not a great person to do the donkey work defensively. And so he's a fantastic player, didn't get his goal today, and then goes missing. And then you've got the pressure that has been put on the Man United midfield, which we've all talked about, as Fulham started to take the game by the scruff of the neck. United start to look a little flaky, or a lot flaky, in the middle of the park. That's another scenario that Ruben Amorim has to fix. And the absolutely glaring one, which I shouldn't have to tell anybody, is I'd love to read the scouting report on Altay. Because there has to have been a scouting report on this goalkeeper. And if somebody has said, very good at set pieces and good in crosses, then you're out of job. Have you ever seen an elite level goalkeeper, Shaq, at this level, on multiple games, look as if he is frightened to death whenever somebody swings the ball in under his crossbar? Which begs the question, by the way, from a Fulham's point of view, when they had it on the other side, why they didn't send out a Sessegnon or a Robinson to whip it in left-footed and send Lukic out to whip the ball away from the goalkeeper. Because whenever they put it in under his crossbar, as was the case last week and as was the case last year, he was absolutely all over the place. And you're not going to put a consistent run of results together with a goalkeeper like that in, because teams are just going to exploit it.
I'll start with the goalkeeper and finish with the striker or strikers. I'll say I I don't understand it. A week ago against Arsenal, I said as much as he has to take responsibility for the Arsenal goal, I also questioned Ruben Amorim and how Manchester United set up to defend against Arsenal from a set piece. Arsenal did nothing new, nothing that we didn't see all of last season. How you go that unprepared to start the season in Arsenal's first game, set pieces was simply beyond me. Then coming into this one, he says he sticks with Bandier because it's for tactical reasons. He just looked at who we're playing against, and this is the right goalkeeper for me. So he leaves Onana on the bench. And at no point did Manchester United look comfortable from any set piece.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper didn't look comfortable. Manchester United had this odd zonal marking system that I have never been enamored with, and were exposed time and time again. I remember Muniz had one header far post, free header. I have no idea how he was that free. I have no idea how he missed. I would have scored that now. So Manchester United just continue to live on this knife edge in terms of set pieces, and it's simply beyond me. They continue to be linked with goalkeepers coming in before the end of the transfer window. Maybe that changes in terms of how they deal with set pieces. Maybe a part of Amorim's thinking is that I'm getting a new goalkeeper in, Onana is on his way out, so therefore let me just stick with at least who'll be here in the longer term. And then
Who's going to take Onana, though?
I would take Onana, no question.
You would take Onana?
I'd take over
Bayern.
Absolutely.
But which club would take Onana now?
Well,
if he's on his way out, who's going to take him?
Well, who would take him?
Yeah.
Well, that maybe goes back to Italy where he had such success with Inter Milan. I don't think anybody in the Premier League takes him. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying there. But let me...
You can't be that bad. You cannot continue with, and I'm not an Onana fan, you cannot continue with a goalkeeper who is so horrendous. And I'm not suggesting that the defensive structure is great, but he is so bad on those in-swingers, it's scary.
He has zero presence in goal.
Yeah.
He really does. Now, there's a lot you could say about Andre Onana, but at least he has a presence. At least he has a voice. At least you can see him shouting with the back four. No, he makes a lot of mistakes, and a lot of them are glaring, but this Bandier is by no means, by no measure, an upgrade on Onana. I would stick with Onana. But to your question, again, I don't think anybody in Premier League takes it. Maybe goes back out to Italy. Now, to Craig's other point about Cunha, and yes, he started wonderfully well. Manchester United played the second half, Sydney finished the second half, with £200 million worth of strikers on the park.
Yeah.
I cannot think of Leno doing an awful lot for the second half. Made a couple of decent saves, which you'd expect from Bernd Leno. But there was 200 million of attacking talent on the park in Mbeumo, Cunha, and Sesko came on 8 minutes into the second half. Now, as expensive an attacking three as that was, you have Bruno Fernandes and Ugarte as the midfielders, kind of the anchor between the back three, come back four, and that attacking three. I am desperate for somebody to tell me what Ugarte does. Don't even bother to tell me what he does well. Just tell me what he does. I'm not sure what he brings to this side. I really am not. And as a result, Bruno Fernandes has to drop further and further. Just spoke about him not tracking Smith Rowe, and doesn't have the kind of creative impact as a result. So there's an imbalance to Manchester United, certainly in that midfield, that I think for all their spending is just negated.
This is a fired-up Xhaka Hislop. I've not seen him speak so passionately about something since Jamal Musiala's injury.
Well, you think about the game, right? Think about the engine room. The player to me watching this game that was on the ball dictating the most was Zander Berger. He always seemed to be on the ball. He always seemed to be driving forward. He always seemed to be making the challenge. And Sasa Lukic. And I think that is supposed to be the engine room for Man United. I think the front line will come good. I think the quicker he gets out of this, well, Sesko's only just in the door, and gets him in the team, the better. Gets him in the team, gets him used to his teammates, gets Cunha in a better position, and gets him some game time. I think the better. And why not just start that now? He had a few minutes against Arsenal. He had a bit more today. But I think the quicker he gets him in the side as this guy who's a young striker with a lot of talent, a lot of physicality, I think it'll be the better for Benjamin Sesko to get that game time. And why, if we start the next game and he's on the bench again, it would just be like a head scratcher. So there are areas of this United side, and look, the story around United at the start of the season is they're better. And in some sense you could make that argument. They do look a little better, but at the end of the day it's all about results. It's about results, it's about defending, it's about the basics, and they still have an issue with that. And it's about, we put that graphic up of Ruben Amorim's results, and until he changes that, that's going to be that sort of cloud that's the shadow over him, isn't it? Because his results have not been good. And they continue to, as much as you could talk about a performance against Arsenal and an early performance against Fulham, which, by the way, if you look back in the last few seasons, they've had their way with Fulham almost every time. So Fulham have been a good club for them, and United have been a bad one for Fulham, and yet they weren't able to get that job done today. And you could say Marco Silva made better substitutions in the second half. The players he brought on had more of an effect, changed the way the game swang, and they did a good job. But United, I think, we're still sitting here thinking, right, how's it going to be? How far are they going to go? And are they going to be able to put a string of results together? And I still think there are big questions about how consistent they can be.
Well, there are big questions about the manager still as well, if this continues and how long he potentially could last. You heard from Ruben
it's very early in the
after
season.
the game.
It's very early for that.
What did you make of what he had to say after the game?
What did he say? I can't remember.
From the soundbite that we just played?
Yeah, I wasn't really listening to him.
Well, he was saying that he doesn't... I'm glad that we do this.
No,
Jack, did you remember?
Remind me too.
To be honest with you, to be honest with you, I didn't hear what the question was, because the question was very muffled, so I didn't really hear what his answer was, to be fair.
He did overall say that he felt like they needed to grow up. He felt like that United went a little too defensive once they went 1-0 up.
Well, he made defensive substitutions as well. He brought Iguarte on. So he brought Harry Maguire on. Okay, that might have been for some set pieces and so forth. But, you know, his captain needs to grow up. For starters. He might be their best player, as Shaq said, and their best passer and their best set piece player, and the guy who's going to assist and all, but he needs to grow up. But guess what? We've known that for quite a few seasons now. He spends a lot of time moaning and whinging at referees. And what we saw today, and there might be people sat at home saying, what's that got to do with the game? That takes. We've sat here and talked about Vinicius Jr. for Real Madrid, and how when he gets off his game head and into the arguing with the referees and into the world's against me, you don't see him at his best. So are you telling me that when Bruno Fernandes is in this mindset, which is quite a lot, by the way, we're going to get the best, we're going to see the best out of Bruno Fernandes? I'll have that argument. And again, what he did today with that penalty absolutely beggared belief. It beggared belief.
To that point, and what Amorim had to say, again, as I was saying to be walking into the studio, a week is a long time in football. This time last week, Ruben Amorim was, albeit in a loss to Arsenal, saying that Manchester United have shown that they could beat anybody in this league. Now, all of a sudden, a week later, they're second best to Fulham, who, to Craig's point, I think they've won their last 8 before today at Craven Cottage. So that speaks volumes to kind of how differently things have shaped up. And to that point, while it's maybe easier when you're trailing Arsenal to take chances, to be more adventurous, to attack a team like Arsenal. And Arsenal will let you play football because they fancy themselves in a head-to-head matchup. That's fine. You can look good in a 1-0 defeat against Arsenal in that way. Now when you go up against Fulham and you have to defend that lead, it shows a weakness of their mentality in terms of, no, let's go ahead and kill this game off. And again, it's terrible to compare this Manchester United with the teams that we played against. But you let the Manchester United of 20 years ago go ahead, you're going to get 3 or 4. Not see a team kind of regress and play on the back foot and not quite sure, knowing what they are to do next. They in so many ways, I thought Manchester United got lucky. And before we move on, I have to say this. Listen, I am all for Bassi on Mount was a foul and a penalty. I thought that was the right call. Maybe some see it differently. But if Bassi on Mount was a foul and a penalty, Euro and Bassi, 2 hands in the back, that was a push. that goal should have been disallowed as well.
At 5-0, a very comfortable win indeed for Portugal. 24 shots in total, an easy 3 points to kick off their World Cup qualifying. Nathan Manua joins us as well, but as always with Portugal, there is one big talking point, and that is Cristiano Ronaldo. Craig Burley. Yes, it is. Because when Roberto Martinez took over, you said this is the perfect opportunity to move Ronaldo to one side.
Who said that?
You did.
Yes, and I stand by that.
That's what my question was. Were you wrong about that, given what he's done?
No, what has he done?
He scored goals, a lot of them, all the time.
He had some success in the Nations League.
Yes.
That replaces the international friendlies. It's not really a big deal. He scores a lot of these goals and at this stage of his career against the Armenias and the Liechtensteins and other teams like that. The question remains, and I don't want to go over all ground in my head again, the question remains, when he's been at the top level against the bigger teams in the European Championships and the World Cups, he's either been anonymous or he's been dragged off. Now, that remains the million-dollar question. Well, it's not a million-dollar question for me. I've seen what the answer is going to be, is that by the time the World Cup comes along in North America here in, 10 months' time, give or take, the weaker teams in the groups, he'll be okay, but it's when it gets to these bigger games in the knockout stages.
But you mentioned the Nations League, obviously against Spain. He scored against Spain. Eventually they'd win the penalty shootout. Spain, arguably the best team in the world.
But look, Roberto Martinez and other coaches that are managing the more elite nations, am I supposed to go down this list here?
No, the list is just there just to prove the point that he has scored goals against bigger teams than Armenia. And when you look at the fact he scored against Germany, he scored against Spain, obviously. He didn't score against Scotland. That was the one anomaly.
There still remains the question whether it's the right thing to do to go into a World Cup with a very talented Portuguese team. I'm not going to go on a rant about Cristiano Ronaldo because he is an amazing professional and an unbelievable football player. And to have the desire to still do it for a club in Saudi Arabia and for your country at this stage of his career, after everything that he's achieved in the game, is incredible. Him and Messi, I don't think, and you know this, I don't think we'll ever see the like again as a twosome. 50 goals a year, give or take, assists, Champions League, league titles, carrying teams on their shoulders, you name it. They've done it, he's done it. The big question remains with this talented Portuguese side under Roberto Martinez, is he going to be flagging at the World Cup and they're carrying him, or can he somehow muster up some more performances? If you look back at the last Euros and the last World Cup, the answer is they're carrying him. So whether he does it or not in the Nations League and whether he does it or not in these qualifiers against weaker opposition is neither here nor there. Recent history is telling you that he struggled in the major competitions, and has Roberto Martinez, A, got the stomach to make the change if need be, and B, maybe got the personnel to make the change. But fair play, João Felix is scoring, that's telling you all you need to know, because he's had his struggles. So I admire Cristiano Ronaldo for, not just for the talent, the supreme talent that he has and what he's achieved in the game, but the fact that he's still out there when he could easily be sat just living the life, in some villa near the ocean or whatever it is he does. But he's out there trying to churn out results. I'll give him credit for that. But I think in my mind there's a massive question mark about how they go into the World Cup with him as the number 9.
Nathan?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard that perspective that Craig's had before, but then I think we could also apply that to a few other strikers as well. And I think some of those attributes or things which sort of get held against players, scoring in those big games and so on, scoring goals against like smaller opposition and the like. That almost sounds a bit to me like the same way we discussed, say, maybe a Harry Kane. Somebody that we see at club level dominate, scores so many goals. And then for England, he's staying out there extra long this time against Andorra because, let's get more goals. It's a great finisher. But then we saw in the Euros last year that there were times when England went at their best because he didn't seem to be able to match up to, say, the energetic high press that, say, the manager wanted at that time. So there are flaws in terms of his game, but then people still know the value that he has because he's such a great finisher. And you get the belief that with England, if he's out there, they believe they can have those moments. And he had those moments last year. So I think in some ways, I kind of go against that take on Ronaldo just that little bit, just because he just scores so many goals. And then from the other perspective, well, if he drops out, then who comes in? Because as we saw today, it's like a Gonçalo Ramos. Would you think that Gonçalo Ramos is going to be the right man to be leading Portugal towards potentially winning the World Cup? Or is there still some little bit of magic left in Ronaldo to be able to almost finish his career at the highest point? Because as we can see, he's playing in Saudi Arabia, he's played in other places, but the real joy he has comes from playing for that Portugal national side. And if he loses that, then I think we lose him as a player.
I should sort of go back a little bit here in something that I'm talking about. For me, for any striker or any front player, goals of course are important because they love the headlines. They love to be the person, the man of the moment, whatever it is. And I understand that. But looking at the Euros in 2024 and looking at the World Cup in 2022, which was when the World Cup was, wasn't it?
Yeah, late.
Yeah. It's not just the goals for me. I don't have an issue if Ronaldo is a little bit lean on the goal scoring stakes, but the performances are good and he is producing for others. But let's be honest about it. If you watched both of those competitions in 24 and 22, it wasn't just the lack of the goal threat for Portugal, it was performance. His performance level dipped in those bigger games, such to an extent where he was taken off at least once or twice and should have been taken off a couple of other games where Roberto Martinez did not do that. So, just to sort of turn the corner a little bit, it's not just, he hasn't scored 4 goals, he's done. I don't have an issue if he only pops up with 1 or 2, but the rest of his game is great because he's bringing people into play, he's playing passes, he's doing, but he's not, because his actual link-up play isn't where it used to be because of age. He can't run the channels anymore in behind because of age. So when you can't do those things, and I take Nathan's point, the backups might not be any better. That might just be the case. But when you can't do those things that were once part of your tool set, all those things, then the only other thing to look at is scoring goals. And then when that doesn't happen, you then sit back and say, right, well, what's the alternative? And that's the only place I'm coming from, having seen 2022 and 2024 with the lack of goal threat, is what else is he going to bring to the team? And I'm afraid when you're, 39, 40, whatever it is, the answer is, to be truthful, not a lot.
Is that why the conversation around Cristiano Ronaldo in the World Cup is different to Lionel Messi in the World Cup?
Because he's still doing things that's affecting the game, even if he's not scoring, even if he's not beating 6 or 7 players, leaving them on the backside and scoring this magnificent goal. Cristiano Ronaldo, scissor kicks, all that sort of stuff, top corner. When they're not doing that, you have to have something else. And Messi has, and it's slightly different because he at times had you could suggest, certainly when you looked at France and Argentina were less talented, but were more built to support Messi. All these, the Molinas, the Rodrigo de Pauls, Enzo Fernandez, they had a bunch of guys who were good players, but they were grafters, they were water carriers. Don't mean it to be disrespectful, but that they were in there to help balance out what his skill set for somebody in their mid-30s. And I thought they did that Saudi Arabia part in the first game when it went wrong. I thought they did that pretty well. The French were more talented, but the Argentinian side was more built as a unit around Lionel Messi. And he's still able to do stuff on the ball that affects the game. So you're not looking so much at, Messi never scored. Whereas for me, you're looking at a number 9 in Cristiano Ronaldo is, well, if he's not scoring goals, what else is he doing? So I think that picture is slightly murkier. And also the fact, we can sit here and have this discussion about Ronaldo at his age being still the man or not. What we can't argue about is 4 years ago, is Lionel Messi helped take Argentina to the promised land. A land that, the Diego Maradonas of this world were once taking Argentina. This discussion we're not having about Ronaldo. They beat France back in the day when Santos was the manager, in Paris in a not very good game. I think Ronaldo may have been injured in that game, came off. So he hasn't taken them to that place that Lionel Messi has taken them in. I just think there's a big question, and I think it is going to be one of the most interesting watches out of many at the World Cup is Cristiano Ronaldo's performances for Portugal, not just his goal threat. I'll be looking at his performances to see if that's going to help link up the team and make Portugal better.
It's interesting, Nathan, we talk about fixture congestion a lot, and of course the Club World Cup has added to that conversation. Given, as we said during those highlights, Cristiano Ronaldo, João Cancelo, João Felix, all playing in the Saudi League, does that help them going into the World Cup, given they're not playing in more competitive matches week in, week out?
That is a great question, and I think it's one of those where you can spin it however you like, because that same conversation was being had, say, maybe a year, 2 years ago, saying that people can't play for like their national side because the football's not competitive enough in Saudi Arabia. But as we're seeing, like, there are some managers of nations around the world who are still consistently picking those players and they're performing for their national side. Yes, it is different. That style of football is different, but you could argue that styles of football, depending on where your club side are, can be very different to your national side anyway. So yeah, from a fixture congestion standpoint, maybe it's beneficial in some ways. Maybe they're not playing at the same level they were previously. And I've got to say, like, for as much as we love club football, like for these players, playing for the national side is everything. You know, that's a big driver as why Ronaldo's still playing now, why Messi's still playing now. And they'll find ways to make sure that they're in their best possible shape to be able to do that. And as I'm sure everyone would agree, like, playing in the World Cup, for many people, if not everyone, is the peak. It's the absolute peak. So whichever league you need to play in to give yourself a chance to do that, you make sure that you are ready to be available for your national side and playing whatever style it needs. So yes, I think the question about, say, player fatigue and so on, maybe some players who are based in Europe might struggle a little bit coming off the back of a long season last year, you know, the Club World Cup this summer. And I think if you make it to the Champions League, I believe like the World Cup starts maybe like 12 days later. That's going to be tough. But I don't think you'll find a player anywhere around the world that isn't going to be desperate to be there for that World Cup next summer.
Who's the lad that, his name escapes me here, Nedum, and I know you're going to have this because he's a former Man City player. Who's the centre-half? He's French, really, but he plays for Spain, and he moved to Saudi Arabia. What's his name again?
Laporte?
Laporte.
Yeah, you could have asked me.
Aymeric Laporte, yeah.
No, I couldn't ask you because you'd have given me that Glacial look again. Going, he's put me in it. I don't have the answer.
No, he surprised people, didn't he? And Kante did as well.
Well, that's where I was going with it. Is he performed really well for Spain at the Euros, N'Golo Kante as well. But Laporte performed really well after playing a considerable amount of time in Saudi Arabia. So I don't really think it's a major drama. You get to your country and, you know, I've played lots of national games with players who are not playing at all and playing for the reserves at their clubs because they are out of contract or they're out of favour. That's a different scenario. And I've seen the struggles of some players trying to go from... And you think, you turn up when you're playing in the reserves, for example, and you're not in the first team at your Premier League club or wherever it is, and you say, I'm okay. I'm still playing twice a week and I'm getting game time. And then you get out there on the big stage and it's 100 miles an hour, and you think it's just not. Whereas at least playing in Saudi Arabia, there is it's a competitive league, and so they should be fine. That's less of an issue for Ronaldo than age, if we're being honest about it. And I know people who love Ronaldo, and I love Ronaldo. I know people who watch this think it's some sort of, you know, being down on him. It's just an analysis of watching the 22 and the 24 competitions and taking into consideration his age. And he can bang these goals in all he wants. Honestly, he can do that all he wants. It's when you get amongst the big cheeses at the big tournaments, that's really when it matters. And you can't, it's very difficult to defy age, as you well know, and I know.
Yes.
So
Mother Nature, Father Time,
Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it. But again, I give him so much credit for wanting to do it, because I mean, he must be creeping up somewhere close to 150 to 200 caps, which is unbelievable. Because most of us lot, Stevie, me, I don't want to speak for Shaq and him, but most of us are like, I'm not going to bother this international game. I'm not going to play in a friendly. He just pitches up time and time again. It's incredible.
Yeah. Just a reminder, more international.
I was happy to put Stevie in it. I'm not putting Shaq in.
Does he start, Craig?
I think he does, but I think he's definitely drinking in the last chance saloon, or he's very close to it. Big star or not, he's not playing well enough. He's not pulling his weight, and they need to win games because, you know, Arsenal are in great form. If they win again at the weekend, and Liverpool drop more points, then that gap increases, and it's very difficult to bridge that. And I think the Mo Salah situation with his form, which seems to be the big talking point for us and in England and at the press conferences, is maybe stopping some of the journalists saying to Arne Slot, what about your team selection? Why is Ekitike on the bench when he's been your best player and Alexander Isak plays? Now that may change at the weekend because Alexander Isak finished or came off in the Champions League game with a groin injury, so that decision may be made for him. But he's got that wrong. He didn't introduce Florian Wirtz in the Manchester derby when that was where the space was. I think he got that wrong. So maybe the Mo Salah isn't playing well. This is all Liverpool's problems. Once he's back scoring goals, everything will be hunky-dory. It's not quite the case, because the manager has struggled, I think, to put Liverpool's best team on the pitch to get the results. Now, he thinks he's putting the best team on. Clearly, every manager does. But I don't think he has. And if I was Hugo Ekitike, having started the way I have for Liverpool at a new club from the Community Shield onwards, I would be peeved. What did Alexander Isak cost? 100 million, 150 million? I don't care. He was the guy with the jersey. He was the guy scoring goals. He was the guy who was the biggest threat. And then their two of their biggest games, Chelsea away and Manchester United at home, he left him out. So it's not just Mo Salah, I think, here. It's the problem with the manager. But of course, if Mo Salah has another stinker, if he plays, and Liverpool drop points, that's where the headlines will go. And it's maybe taking a little bit of heat, or certainly questions, away from Arne Slot's team selection.
No, I agree. Listen, I think Ekitike starts. No question. He's been
because of the injury.
Or Ekitike starts because he's the best attacking player for Liverpool this season.
But he hasn't.
Agreed. Well, I mean, moving forward, in my opinion, Ekitike has to start. He has been, without question, Liverpool's best attacking threat all season long. Now, the question then becomes, does Arne Slot play 3, play 2, or do something that we haven't seen him do for some time, just play the one up front? And that's where, well, both Alexander Isak and Mo Salah have not played well. So to Craig's point about Mo Salah maybe drinking in last chance saloon, if you had a viable contender, you could see that. But given Isak's own struggles, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And it really just comes down to Mo Salah's age and Alexander Isak's cost. And which way does Arne Slot go as a result? Now, again, we've had this conversation about Mo Salah time and time again in Liverpool, going through lean spells, and then all of a sudden he lights the league alight. So you want to feel that it happens again. That time will come where it doesn't. But as of right now, you're still backing Mo Salah to do Mo Salah things.
In all fairness to him, though, I think there is. Well, there's no doubt about it. Some of the threat has been negated on that right-hand side by the fact that Alexander Arnold has gone to Real Madrid. When you have such an attacking player with the prowess and the passing ability of an Alexander Arnold who can bend balls in and play balls over the top for you, you're going to get more service. That has gone, so that adds a bigger pressure on Mo Salah to perform with a Conor Bradley, who's a good player, but he isn't Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Dominic Szoboszlai, who's gone back there, or indeed Jeremy Frimpong, who I don't think they've worked out, is he a right winger yet, or a right wing back, or a right back, but that's another story. Going back to Slot, I think when he comes in off the back of Jurgen Klopp, that's a difficult pair of shoes to fill, and he did a great job, but there was less to tinker with. There was less decisions had to be made. How do I get a bit of Ryan Gravenberch? How do I get a bit of this? How do I get a bit of that? But within reason, that 11 was on the field most weeks, certainly early in the season. Now he has many more decisions than he had last year.
So obviously Frimpong injured in this game, so he's not going to be available at the weekend against Brentford. We've seen Florian Wirtz in this game. He had a couple of assists as well, Craig. Yeah. How does this team change this weekend against Brentford?
Well, look, I thought the ideal time to get him back in was maybe not Chelsea away, which he didn't, but it was Man United at home, which he didn't. And Brentford away, it's going to be more physical. It's going to be long balls. They're going to sit in. They're going to sit in and defend a little deeper, and then when they do win it, they're going to try and hit that ball over the top like they did against Manchester United to some success. But when the team sits in, like I think Brentford will, you need somebody that can pick those little holes. But the ball he played for Gakpo across was, I can't resist it sometimes.
I'm laughing at him.
I love using the word nerd. It just gets them going. Those people sat there. But, the ball he played for Gakpo across he can do that with his eyes closed. So yeah, I mean, at some point, you're going to want to get Florian Wirtz into your team, into form, with a continuous run of games to build up his confidence. And the sooner they do that, I think, the better.
Look, I'm in no position to say that Florian Wirtz is struggling with confidence. But certainly, kind of given the performance against Leverkusen, the 2 assists, you've got to keep him on the park. You want to get the best version of Florian Wirtz. Frankfurt, excuse me. You want to get the best version of Florian Wirtz performing for Liverpool. And you kind of saw, after he came off the bench against Liverpool, that little turn flick that played Mo Salah and really should have done better. But that's the Florian Wirtz that you know and that Liverpool thought they were buying. So you want to keep him in this momentum of playing well, of being creative, of being that player. And as a result, Arne Slot has to play him against Brentford. Whether Brentford's style suits Florian Wirtz or not, you've got to get him on the park in this moment, kind of give him the form that he's shown over recent weeks. Even in some of the more disappointing results, I think his performances have slowly gotten better.
Let me stick with you, Shaq, because Arne Slot was also talking about the form and fitness of Alexander Isak and how it's been disrupted this summer at a smaller club. He said you cannot compare maybe a player who hasn't trained or played in pre-season at a smaller club than if you go to Liverpool. Well, this is what Eddie Howe has responded with.
I think the setup here is very good. It's not perfect, we've got things to improve and to grow, but the club the owners here have developed the facilities since I've been here very, very well, and I know there's you can see there's building work going on currently to hopefully help us deliver even better in the future, but I've got no complaints. We've got elite athletes here, many of them, and touch wood, we're managing them pretty well at the moment.
Shaka, is Arne Slot blaming Liverpool for Isak's form and fitness?
No, credit Eddie Howe for not taking the bait. First of all, Alexander Isak didn't have a pre-season with Newcastle United. So in talking about having a pre-season at a smaller club, it doesn't apply certainly this season to Alexander Isak because he chose to stay away and train on his own. So I think the first part of Arne Slot's comments is geared towards Alexander Isak, and we all say it all the time. You can train as much as you like. That cannot replicate games. Pre-season games cannot replicate Premier League games when they run around, when it truly matters. Alexander Isak had neither. And as a result, it's kind of struggled. But at the same time, Alexander Isak has got this kind of injury history to him. In 3 years at Newcastle, he missed 38 games through injuries. That's almost an entire league season. So that speaks to maybe his frailty. And while he's gotten better with each season, he does spend a lot of time on the sidelines. And of course, not having a pre-season hasn't helped that, hasn't helped his form. And that, especially given Mo Salah's own struggles, has been a huge problem for Arne Slot in Liverpool.
Well, if there was an issue, which there was, with Alexander Isak's pre-season, which was well documented, or lack of pre-season, why is Arne Slot playing him? I could understand playing him if you didn't have Ekitike. You didn't have a striker and you want to get him in the side and you don't really have much choice. But he's not in that situation. He's got two number 9s. One a little bit more versatile than the other. I think Ekitiki's a little bit more versatile. But he's got 2 guys that can play that position. And he's talking about his pre-season wasn't ideal, and yet he's put him in early season in the 2 biggest games. Doesn't make sense. Almost feels like he felt pressured to get him in the team. And not only is that detrimental to Isak's confidence, it's detrimental to the mindset now of Ekitike, who's... And this happens as a player. If you go on the field and you play like how he has played for your new club, and then somebody comes in, playing in your position for big money, is not fit, but goes straight into the team and doesn't perform, and then goes back in the team the following big game, you're in the dressing room and you go home, you go, what the hell? What do I need to do? So you then cause an issue with 2 players, one lacking confidence and one now pretty upset with the manager, who he might not say it, and he hasn't said anything, hasn't come out and said, I think if it was me, I'd be going, knocking the manager's door down, trying to play. So that's why I go back to some of Arne Slot's decisions with the new players, where he's played them and moving Szoboszlai to right back and all that, and he's done okay. These kind of things with Wirtz and Ekitike and Szoboszlai, they're just little cracks that are appearing in his decision making that he didn't have to make last year because he didn't have the amount of squad, he didn't have these big signings. So I go back to it, within reason, if everybody was fit, he could pretty much put the same group of players on the field, which was to their detriment the longer the season went on. Because I think some of those players got tired because there wasn't the rotation. Now he has the players for the rotation, but he's struggling to find the right balance within the first 11. And that, I think, is where we're going to find out about Arne Slot, particularly with the pressure on, with Arsenal winning and with City winning. And Liverpool can ill afford at the weekend to drop any more points.
Yeah. Well, let's get your predictions, because we asked all of you. We even called Stevie to get his prediction for the weekend, and everybody's gone for 2-1 for Liverpool.
Well, when you watch a game with Stevie and Mo Salah's having a good game, it's something to behold. When you're watching the game with Stevie and Mo Salah's having a bad game, it's off the Richter scale.
Says the FIFA Disciplinary Committee has imposed a 3-match ban on Cristiano Ronaldo following his direct card against Republic of Ireland. The first of the 3 matches was served against Armenia on the 16th of November of 2025. The serving of the 2 remaining matches has been suspended under a 1-year probation period. If Cristiano Ronaldo commits another infringement of a similar nature and gravity during the probationary period, the suspension set out in the disciplinary decision shall be deemed automatically revoked, and the 2 remaining matches must be served immediately at the next official matches of the Portuguese representative team. So basically, he served the 1-game suspension, the mandatory 1-game suspension for a red card against Armenia, the next game that Portugal had. However, they've deemed that it should be 3-match ban, but they have suspended those 2 remaining games, which just so happen to be the World Cup opening games for Portugal.
Yeah.
Go on, Robbo.
Is that a concern for you?
Is it a concern? Are they making rules just to suit the World Cup and him? It looks as though they are, because if they've given him, if they think it's worth 3 games, it should be 3 games. The first 3 games that he's suspended for, and 2 of those would be the World Cup games.
What do you think of it?
If Gianni Infantino, who oversees the whole FIFA thing, and he'll say, I left this to the disciplinary committee, nonsense. If he had any shame, which he hasn't, because he'd sell his soul for money, wouldn't he? Let's be honest about it. He's already shown that with the Club World Cup and the extension of the amount of teams at the World Cup. They have made a mockery of their own disciplinary process here. A mockery, a complete sham, right? They've made and what they're saying to referees and officials are like, maybe you shouldn't send off the big stars. Maybe just keep it to the guys under the radar, and we don't have to brush it under the carpet. We don't have to have these problems. We don't want these issues because we want the big stars at these major tournaments. We don't want to discipline them, and it's all about the product. And at the end of the day, when have you ever known a player been sent off for violent conduct? I've never known that happen in a player getting any sort of probationary period. Unless I'm missing something, it's a 3-game ban, and that's it. You can't give somebody a 3-game ban and say, I tell you what, you've served the ban, have 2 off, as long as you don't do it again. I mean, it has made a mockery of an organisation that, let's be honest about it, couldn't give a stuff because they're making the rules up for themselves. If that had been any other player, Joe Bloggs playing for the Republic of Ireland, and they're going to be in the playoffs. But say the Republic had qualified automatically and one of their players had been sent off for doing something similar, he'd have got 3 games straight away, and that poor lad would have missed the World Cup, or the first couple of games in the World Cup. But for Cristiano, there's different rules. And if FIFA try and tell you anything different, then they're talking absolute nonsense.
And over when it happened, you understand, at the moment when it happened, I think if he looks back at the situation, he will look at himself too, that he got outsmart, because normally no one will get him like that. And he still got carried away and got himself carried away and then hit, I think it was O'Shea, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting he is one of the best players now. I mean, that's a different debate.
Absolutely.
And it's now a headache for Roberto Martinez.
But we do want to see Cristiano Ronaldo in the World Cup in Portugal's games, don't we?
Do we?
I don't know, do we?
Well, have you not?
I didn't like watching him play for Juventus when he was playing for Juventus, and that was a few years ago. I thought he messed up their team completely. So we all have different views on Ronaldo.
We've had this debate endlessly. I'm not going to go through it all again about whether he should play or whether Roberto Martinez has a stomach to drop him and whether they're a better side without him. For a millionth time, I'm going to say the last 2 major tournaments that he has played, he has struggled. Fernando Santos benched him, and then he struggled in the last tournament, and I can't remember what Roberto Martinez did, but it wasn't very strong. So there is an argument anyway to say whether he should start for Portugal or not. But I want to see as many big stars playing at a World Cup as I can, and I think every football fan would want the same. But you cannot have one rule for the superstars and another rule for the rest, which is what FIFA have done here, and it's unacceptable.
The BBC are reporting that the fact it was the first red card in 226 international appearances was taken into account.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's like going down. It's like going down the street and killing somebody and then saying, "I haven't done it before." It doesn't matter. Once you've committed that offence or that crime or whatever it is, you're punishable by that offence. So I don't know what the BBC are getting their nonsense from. They're a bunch of muppets anyway. You know what I mean? They'd let everybody play. A bunch of woke nonsense. They'd let everybody play at the World Cup. I mean, at the end of the day, offences are punishable by the actions. And the action here, whether you're a Ronaldo fan or not, is violent conduct. And violent conduct is normally 3 games for players. If people can't accept that, they don't understand the laws of the game. They just don't.
Well, Portugal find themselves
He is going to play the World Cup.
Yes, of course.
He's going to play the World Cup.
Because you know Roberto Martinez
is never going to drop him.
Yeah,
Martinez never going to drop him.
I know that.
So I can tell you that straight away. He will play, and Martinez will not say a word to him. Believe me, the moment when we think that he should drop him, he will look at Martinez, only give him a look, like how you look at your parents and say, "Can I have that candy?" Don't worry, he will give him as much
and listen,
candy
he
wants.
may go to the World
Believe
Cup and
me.
score a bunch of goals. That may happen. However, the history will tell you that it didn't happen in the last 2, and I don't care how many goals he scored in Saudi Arabia. Robbo and I could go over there. Well,
No, hang on. I've got a new knee, and your back's out of salt. So
I don't know where you're saying everybody wants to see Ronaldo at the World. What, you some fan or something?
No, but you say everybody wants to see the big stars. He's a big star, isn't
Well,
he?
everybody wants to see the best players. Let me phrase it.
I want to see the best players, and if he's not the best player, I'm not saying he's not, but I don't want him just there because he's a superstar.
He's not anymore.
It's the same with Neymar. You know, I didn't like watching Neymar play when I don't think he was contributing, but he was picked every week and he was the big star, but he didn't contribute on most games that I saw.
OK, Portugal will find themselves in pot 1 because the World Cup pots have been announced by FIFA ahead of the draw taking place a week on Friday, December 5th. This is how things are looking in pot 1, where I said Portugal there. Scotland, pot 3, Craig.
Yeah, what pot?
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Jan Agafiotov's joining Craig and Stevie to answer your questions. We've seen some cup action today, so let's get started with how good was Craig? Which current player reminds you of the way he played?
Ooh. Marouane Fellaini. Now, let's not go down these lines.
Leonard Carl.
I was a box to box. Particularly when I went to Celtic, I was boxed. I wasn't. We were talking about this yesterday. Actually,
you got a few goals.
Somebody was a 6, somebody was an 8, somebody was a 10. Who was it who was talking about that? And you said, "Oh, it was Mike." It was Mike, the producer.
What's an 8? That's a 6.
He's a 6. He's an 8. He's a 10. I always just said when I was at Celtic, I had 8 in my back, and that just meant you did everything. You had to do everything.
But Craig, you were 8. I mean, you were a very good player. You scored against us. You were both of you. You were those kind of types of player that people needed in a team. Very important players, and I remember you very well. And so for people asking that question, we can joke it away. He was not a Leonard Carl, but he was a very, very good player in the team, and he scored against Norway at the World Cup. So he will always be remembered for that.
Were you always the position that you ended up playing?
No, and that was one of the reasons when I really found my feet when I went to Celtic, and it wasn't because the league was weaker, which it was in the Premier League, but it was a lot stronger than it is now. And people, when I talk to people when I'm doing an interview like that, I say, one of the issues I had at Chelsea is that I got shifted. Now, he did it particularly well at Liverpool, but I got shifted from pillar to post quite a lot. One week I was, if somebody was out and needed me to play right back, I'd play right back. If somebody was out and at centre half, I could play there. If somebody was out in the middle, I played central midfield was my position, but quite often I play on the right side of midfield. Yeah. And so I always felt I was going from sort of pillar to post. When I went to Celtic, I was in the spot every week in, week out, and I think I missed one game in 97, 98 with a calf strain. Other than that, I was in the team. Paul Lambert was my partner, Big Morton Vikos was my partner. At times I would play the three, but I played. Every week I played in the same position and I had continuity. And kind of similar at Derby, but we were a struggling team, down there. And I think that is a big difference for a lot of people. How did it didn't really bother you so much at Liverpool? Because you played in a few different positions.
Well, it didn't bother me because, I was opposite of Craig. I knew that I was moving around because of injuries, suspensions, whatever it might be, but I knew that if everybody was fit, I was still playing in my spot, because my spot was fullback. So I always knew I was going to play there. That's the difference.
So if everybody was fit, you got shunted back to your natural position?
As soon as everybody was fit, I went back to my normal spot. And so it was easy for me. I was just playing. I wasn't under any pressure. So if you think about what was going on with him, he's under pressure because they're expecting him to be spot on while they're shoveling him around, and he's not getting a chance to actually show what he's capable of in his own position. So it was completely opposite.
I mean, to give you an example, Ruud Gullit said to me one day, we're playing Blackburn at the weekend, I'm going to play you sweeper at Ewood Park. And I did, and I couldn't wait to get back in the middle of the park because Shearer and Sutton never gave me a minute. Because they absolutely worked their socks off. And so I thought I was going to go up there, light a big cigar, get on the ball, and all of a sudden we had this team that was just working unbelievable. You never got a minute. But that's an example of it. You're having to go back, right, you're playing sweeper one week, you're playing right mid the next week, playing centre mid. I think it's quite difficult when that happens.
But it's interesting discussion because in modern football of today, you don't have that. You're more like specified players. You can have that in German football, of course. Philipp Lahm, he played right back or played the number 6 for Germany sometimes. You have the same with Joshua Kimmich. He was also a right back, or should he play as a 6 in midfield? You see sometimes by Arsenal how high is Declan Rice playing. Subimendi, when he's there, you can push him forward. So that's the main thing now. But back in the days in the 90s, the stories of Stevie and Craig was more normal, that you had to play different positions. People like myself, I was always the number 9, but people in midfield who were good defensively, worked hard with a good discipline, they could end up playing in many different positions.
Well, your first team squad today, you look at Arsenal's first team squad, it is absolutely 100% 22. They got two guys for every single position.
Yeah.
So when I was playing, there was one sub. And you probably had a first team squad of 15, maybe 16, and 2 of them were goalkeepers. And then Craig was the year after me, which it would then go up to maybe 18 of a squad. So, you had to be able to be flexible and be able to do a really good job. Depending on whatever team you played for, you had to be able to do it. Now nobody needs to do it because they've got so many players for every position.
We went to play a World Cup qualifier, I think it was 97, 96, after the Euros, qualifying for France 98, in Minsk, Belarus, and we had a couple of injuries at the back, and Craig Brown asked me to play centre-back. We had the other centre-halves in the squad, and he said, will you go back and play centre-back? And I went, aye, I'll go back. Weren't really happy trying to play the offside with everybody else.
Was it stressful when you'd get told that? Did you get a little bit stressed, overthink it sometimes?
No, you just got to be on. No, not really. It's just like because if I didn't think I could have done it, I'd have said no.
Right.
But he said, look, will you do a job for me, centre back? I'm struggling a little bit, and I'd rather put you back there. You'll be all right, sort of thing.
Right. And they're not going to ask you if they don't think you can do it either.
Right.
Craig, we always end up discussing Alan Johnson, our main man, And after we had that show where we talked about him for 20 minutes, I'm calling him the next day. He was on his way to Italy for the Milano game. Let's put it this way, he lived up to his reputation. But once in the national team, our national coach was trying to get Rune Bratseth. Remember him? He was a libero for Werder Bremen, a very good player. So we played him in a 6 position, Monday training, Tuesday training. And me and Alan Johnson was going to play centre half, play at Parc des Princes. We were playing France away, looking forward to the game. And then we were having the sleep before the game and after lunch, or the pre-match meal, and somebody knocked at the door, and it was the national coach, and he said, Rune Bratseth told me he doesn't want to play at the number 6, so he's going back in your position. Thank you very much, you're on the bench. So it's not always these kind of things that goes up like Craig Brown did for you, or you did for Craig Brown.
Has Ellen forgiven me for all the stories?
He was laughing a lot.
Okay.
I got some reports during the night, and let's put it that way, we can do another show.
Yeah, probably at a later time, no doubt. Okay, Stevie, if you could sign any one of these 3 midfielders to strengthen Liverpool's midfield, who would be at the top of your list? Adam Wharton, Carlos Baleba, or Elliot Anderson?
Oh, and they're all decent players, aren't they?
I'd probably go with Wharton. Because he's a great football player. He can pass the ball with either foot. And he actually defends. You look at, I think of Baleba, and I think about a really strong guy who's going to go and challenge and go and win balls and be like an enforcer. And then I'm thinking, well, Adam Wharton isn't going to go and smash people, but he's still going to do the same job. He's still going to get the ball back, because he's using his brains. So I'd rather have an intelligent footballer over a guy who doesn't rely, but seems more physical in terms of football. So I would go with Adam Wharton, and then I'd go Elliot Anderson, and then I would go Baleba.
It's weird because cultured left-footed players were always in demand. But it's weird now because with the modern game, we don't really talk about a midfield, for example, having a left-footed and a right-footed and a bit of balance, because it just seems everybody does, right-footers, left-footers sometimes play in the right wing because they like coming inside and vice versa. Whereas back in the day, your left-footed player gave you that balance on the left-hand side or the left side of midfield. Wharton's one of those players, but we don't really, if you talked about a Liverpool 3, which was really successful, Szoboszlai, McAllister, and Gravenberg last year, not once did we talk about what was a strong foot. But back in, it seems, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, am I?
No, there used to be
years ago, your left-sided midfield player would have been a left-footer.
People were obsessed with trying to find England left-footed players, I remember those.
Yeah, but I think it's more I think back in the days we have more defined roles, Craig.
Yeah.
I think that's why we needed that left foot, because that's what we played. Now they're so flexible, Now they can play on every side and they come inside. They play with a diamond and all that kind. But as you were saying, back in the days, we need that left footer. We need it. Where is he?
Yeah. Okay. For Stevie and Craig, Celtic lose again. Should Nancy be sacked?
Oh, by the way, just before we were coming on air at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
I knew they were playing today, and I thought, wow, no, come on. Dundee United away. I mean, I've no idea how Dundee United are these days, to be honest with you. But I thought, wow, it can't be 4 in a row. You're not going to lose 4 in a row because they were
8th in the table.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but what I can tell you is, reading between the lines with a lot of the journalists in Scotland that I know, the terminology they are using at the moment is out his depth.
Yeah, but he lost the dressing room when he arrived the first day. I mean, I'm speaking to some people up in Scotland, it's unbelievable. Did you see his comment after the cup final? You probably have it on the show when he said, we started the game well, but then we got a goal after 1 minute. I mean, this is you can say a lot about footballers. We can be stupid, and we can be this, and we do that. But we know a coach when he's coming into the dressing room, if he is the right deal. Or is he a wannabe? And I don't know this coach. You Americans know him much, much better than me, probably. But, I mean, how can you, and I'm not just taking the coach of Celtic, how can the management there, before a a cup final, take out Martin O'Neill, just steady the ship, and then you go a chance afterwards. I can't believe that a proud club like Celtic is doing what I've done.
Well, it's interesting because Martin O'Neill, who came in as an interim manager for the second time after, Martin O'Neill was hugely successful at Celtic first time round. Had built a great squad, had great success, blah, blah, blah. Came back as interim, won 7 out of 8, steadied the ship.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was on radio saying, look, he talked to Wilfred Nancy briefly in the handover, but the new manager did not pick Martin O'Neill's brains about the squad.
Exactly.
He did not sit down with them and say, give me 10, 15 minutes on each player, so that he knew exactly what he was dealing with. From not just looking at a video, but saying, what's his strength? What's his attitude like? Is he fast? Is he can play? And I don't think Martin O'Neill was trying to throw him under the bus. He just said I just had a brief conversation with him. And so he didn't, it seems to me that his understanding of what he's got isn't up to speed. And on top of that, I've seen somebody say, well, this is down to the board because the squad are not good enough. They have whether it's true or not, that this Celtic squad should be better. It is still the best squad in Scotland.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
You don't think he should have picked his brains?
No, that would have
not telling him what to do.
That would
just
have been
asking him about players.
In terms of the board's setting Nancy up to fail. That's what they've done. Probably the most important week in recent history at the club. They're playing Hearts, who are top of the league. They're playing Roma, and then they're playing a cup final. And you've had Martin O'Neill, who's absolutely calmed everything down.
Yes.
Now, anybody who knows anything about football would know that a new manager walking into any team, it's going to cause a little bit of turmoil till they figure out who wants what. But yet this guy's just been thrown with the wolves and said, right, you're going to have to beat Hearts, who are top of the league, who are flying, and then you've got one of the toughest games you've had in how many years in Roma, and then you've got a cup final.
Roma under Gasparini.
And then all of a sudden, they look disjointed. Of course they're disjointed, because the manager's coming in asking the players to do something that Martin O'Neill didn't ask them to do.
Actually, Peter Law, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you saw this today. Peter Law, the long-time chief executive of that football club, has resigned. Not because of Wilfred Nancy, because of the abuse. The abuse he's been getting, the threats, and I'm not saying Peter Law's great at his job at all. I had no idea. I wasn't there when I was at Celtic. But what I can tell you is that he has felt that it's gone beyond the pale. It's gone too far. And I know how it works there, the pressure. And they're also saying, the fans are turning, and not just Peter Law, but the whole board saying, you have not done your homework properly here. This guy's a bit of a romantic when it comes to how we play the game, and that's not what we need. But what I can tell you from experience, it's about an hour and a half, maybe just under 2 hours to get back from Dundee to Glasgow. And when that bus pulls into Celtic Park, and it's probably already done that now, because it's about 11 o'clock in the UK as we do this, PM, I can tell you, when they pull into Celtic Park up to the car park, there will be a lot of fans there, a lot. And they'll be waiting for every one of them to get off the bus, including the manager, and it will not be pretty. And they have that to look forward to, trust me.
Craig, you know it from inside there, what a club that is. Fantastic passion, and sometimes, because it's Scottish League, when you were there, Celtic, Rangers, fantastic club, great atmosphere, and the most passionate fans in the world. But when you see a club, as you were alluding to, Stevie, this is typical people who don't have a clue about management, because they're playing Hearts, they're playing Roma, and they're playing a cup final. They think, wow, this is a great start for the new manager. We get him in now. He get a win against Hearts. Okay, we're okay. And then you get a title after 1 week. What a wise sporting manager I am. Let's put him in there. And then it backfired big time. I mean, this is so typical. And the new coach just fits to his... I don't know him. So that's why it's easier to criticize him, but I just see the type. When you have Martin O'Neill there, who has been there before, is one of the wisest managers British football, Northern Ireland, whatever, has invented, and you don't pick his brain, then you are one of those coaches who think you invented football. I'm sorry, football has been invented long before you arrived in Glasgow.
I know we have to move on, but I can't tell you, it is one of the great theatres to play. The game tonight wasn't at Celtic Park, it was at Tannadice. I can tell you, it's one of the great theatres to play. I mean, I played Old Firm games there. I played against Liverpool in the UEFA Cup when Maka scored a late equaliser, 2-2 run half the way up the field. It's an incredible atmosphere. It's a great, whether you're a Celtic fan or not, it's a great place to go and play.
It's a place you don't...
the stadium...
You got to play there every week, but as somebody who plays in other clubs, it's a place you don't forget that you've played at.
Right.
In terms of what the stadium and the atmosphere is like.
The new stadium is just incredible. It is one of the best places to play football in Europe. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's incredible. However, when things are not going well,
it goes the other way.
Trust me, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of players just buckle under. When I went there, Rangers had won 9 titles in a row. They had Gascoigne and Laudrup and you name it, they had it. And every week they reminded us that we had to beat them. And if we even drew a game at home, they were going to kill us. So you can imagine what this guy's going through. But the answer to the question is, and not to go on, I don't know what the outcome will be, but 4 straight defeats and a baying Celtic support is going to be tough for the board not to do something.
I think they will fire him. There's no chance that a club like this, with that greatness of Celtic, can have a manager who doesn't understand a thing about how they're doing. And the head of sports, what's his name, Craig? Is Paul Tisdale or whatever? The sporting director, I'm not sure what his name is, but the sport director there he has invested in this manager, and maybe that will give him an extra couple of games. But if you get a crowd against you, and as Craig, you know that so very well. I mean, no chance.
One of the guys, I was telling Stevie, one of the guys that I follow on social media, Ewan Murray, he's a big golf writer for The Guardian, but he's a Hearts fan. And he just tweeted up, no need for Celtic to make a hasty decision. Because the poorer Celtic are, the more Hearts, because they're winning the league at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. Listen, I've been there when we've lost 2 games in a row. And not 4. Oh my God.
Yeah. Better places to be right now.
Yeah.
Jan, do you think...
Middlesbrough.
Definitely, where you can win 4 in a row. Do you think Company can find a way for both Musiala and Lennart Karl to start together in Bayern's playing 11, especially in the big Champions League games?
I think he will find a way, or could find a way. I'm not sure that he will do it. That depends on a lot. How good is Musiala when he comes back? He needs his balance, he needs his rhythm, he needs his self-confidence, even that he is one of the best players around at top 5 when he's in top form. But we discussed this on the show. I think it's an advantage for both Lennart Karl and Musiala that there are 2 of them, because that put a bit... Lennart Karl is 17. He can't carry this team to the Champions League final. He can be a major part, but he's not going to have that responsibility. Same with Musiala. He doesn't have to play 90 minutes now when he comes back. They can steady get him into the game, give him 30 minutes, give him a half, play a home game against whoever, and then he can kind of get him into the game. So I think it's a both advantage for Lennart Karl and Musiala. I think that Company has been so clever at Bayern that he could find a system, but I think I will think that the first 6 months now it will be rarely that they both will play at the same time. Remember, you have some Olise, you have Gnabry, you have Kane, you have a lot of good players that need to be fitted in there.
When Jan was talking there, I was having a think. I don't like the new me. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't like the old me. But I don't like the new me. What's the new me?
What's a new me?
Retell. What's the new me? What's the new you? Sorry.
Talking about Bayern.
No.
What?
When did you change?
Trying to answer questions on extra time normally. Now, I've always liked rubbishing the question and moving on.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you just realised?
Jan, what's going on? I mean, has somebody spiked my tea?
You Jan, you me.
Normally at this point I've said, what a crap question, don't even send it in again. We're sitting here giving, 4 different answers to one tweet.
We're not going to go all the way to the end because we have had a very long extra
This won't
time.
last.
Shall I
Can't last.
Should I do the last one, producer?
What is it?
Yeah, it's an easy one. Stephen, with a V. As a Liverpool fan, who would you prefer to win the league, Arsenal or City?
Oh, I've got the answer to that. Easy. That is easy, and do you know the answer?
Yeah,
I know the answer.
Answer it for me.
Well, Who do you think he wants to win the league if it's not Liverpool? It's
You're
easy.
asking me or you're asking the producer?
I'm asking you. We're asking you who Stevie's choice would be. I know who it is.
Arsenal.
Wrong.
Wrong. Why is he wrong?
Because I'm not a fan of Arsenal, that's why.
He'd much rather...
Why are you a fan of Manchester City?
More than Arsenal.
Right.
Why?
Man United or Arsenal? That's easy, isn't it? Is it? Is that easy?
Oh, yeah, Arsenal.
So there's levels of hatred.
There's levels. There's levels, yeah. Oh, no, I'd rather Arsenal win than Man United, yeah. But that wasn't
I'm
the
back.
question.
I have to say, you in tomorrow? I'm back in tomorrow, and I'll be back to my old self in extra time.
You'll be back to your old self tomorrow because you'll have...
Very good extra time. We were analytic today.
It was a nice extra time.
Do you see when we wanted to be a little analytical? We can be. It's just
I tried to throw in Alan Johnson. That didn't take a stick either, did it?
No.
No, Dan's
Just
back tomorrow,
to be honest, I think it depends how the show's. I think it depends how the show's gone. If the end of the show has gone downhill quicker than like Franz Klammer on a set of skis, then the chances are I'm going to boil over on extra time.
Well, there's only like 3 highlights today, so I think he was all right.
Yeah.
I think that's what's done it. Well done, producer Pete. Just a few highlights.
Yeah, well, it was like yesterday.
How many's going to know who Franz Klammer is?
And I just wanted to say, for those of you who don't know Franz Klammer, downhill Olympic gold 1976.
Well, that's how I threw in the skis.
Who under 50 years of age is going to know?
Well,
Franz Klammer.
I'm sorry for bringing it up.
And the Scottish football fans.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sending in your questions today.
Tomorrow we'll get Wilfred Nancy on the show.
He's got the show. Dan Thomas is
Yeah,
back. Craig
he will do
Burley
well
is
the
back.
first minute.
Make
He
sure
will do
you
well
are
the first
too.
minute.
ESPN FC on ESPN Plus, available every single day.